Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Absolute Football Podcast, absolutely non-league show, the show dedicated to everything from the National League, National League North, National League South, and as always, we are in collaboration with the fantastic NLFullTime. And of course, these are honestly one of my favourite times of the season because we can reminisce about everything. We can talk about the season all the teams have had, and we are starting with the National League South. But before we do get onto the National League South season review, what a team I've got tonight. Ben, our National League South expert, may I add, for the evening. And don't even say you're not, because you are. So don't be cutting yourself short right now. But how are you and how's your weekend been?
Well, I'm under no pressure at the moment, so
you're under loads of pressure.
Oh yeah. I'm all right. You know, things like I say now. Football's obviously been back. You know, gone for a couple of weeks now for me, and do you know what? It's been nice to just recoup and just not think about the disaster of Weston United. So apart from tonight, obviously, got to go through it again. But no, I'm all right. Shah, how are you?
Yeah, I'm doing really well, thank you. I feel like I've come in fancy dress today. I've come as either a referee or a lineswoman. I've not got my flag with me, though, so don't worry. But if you do annoy me, any of you, I may have a yellow or red card near me. I'm joking.
You've got the headset already.
I've got the headset. I'm in VAR this evening.
It's bound to be yellow, isn't it, the card?
Always yellow. Always yellow. It's you probably all know, but it's my favourite colour. Don't know if I gave it away. But yeah, I'm really good. Thank you, Ben. And of course, Jen, how are you? And how's your weekend been? So glad that you're on here as well because we have missed you.
Yeah, I've missed you guys as well. There's just been some stuff happening behind the scenes at the minute that's taken me away from the podcast. But yeah, I'm doing okay. Had a good weekend. Watched some charity football yesterday, which was nice in the sunshine. But yeah, I'm doing all right. Glad to be back on here, but glad there's also no football at the minute.
I know, I bet. Don't worry though, Jen. There's no northern teams in this. It's all southern. We're concentrating on the south.
I mean,
so no
if we want to talk about the north, half of the teams in the north aren't even north. So
yeah true. That is so true. And of course, as always, in collaboration with the fantastic NLFullTime, representing this evening, Rob, how are you and how was your weekend?
Thank you, Shah. Really good, really well. I've been quoted a few times as saying I'm really looking forward to the break from football. I didn't go to Wembley on Sunday. And unfortunately, I'd spend most of my weekend painting my kitchen. I hate painting. I hate painting ceilings with a passion. And that's what I ended up doing. Between the two coats, though, I did make a couple of hours to watch the FA Trophy final. And I was very nearly tempted to get back on with the painting a few times during that one. The least said about that, the better. But no, all good. Happy to join you guys. I was just thinking it's the JCB, and then I've come on, haven't I? So
maybe all right.
Should we call it our JCB? There
yes, we go. Definitely fits in with our northern theme anyway, and my northern slang anyway. But Rob, what colour are you painting your kitchen? I'm hoping it's yellow. I'm joking.
Yeah. It's been not a very nice pale green.
Yes.
But now to go with the rest of my downstairs, which I've gone right through, I've gone for white, which is probably the most popular colour people go for these days. It does look clean and crispy, although I've still annoyingly got a third coat to do. So still more to do.
I love that. Before we do talk, because I feel like before we go into our season review, we will give an FA Trophy a few minutes to talk about. But before we do that, we will say hello to some amazing people in the chat, our regulars. So we do have Spenny Fan Chris. Good evening, all. My predictions weren't great at all for the South. I was just talking off air, and I was thinking if we all wanted to at some point, I will post some of our predictions out on like the Instagram and the Twitter of some of our early predictions of the season and see how close we were and how not close some of us were. So yeah, I might do that. Have a word with Sam and do it. But Sam has put, evening everyone, it's the first of our season reviews. Hope I haven't muffed up the graphics. Don't worry, Sam. The graphics look amazing and much appreciated too. And we have Luke as well. All right, everyone, get me to next season. I need some 0-0 patrol to happen. Also, Luke, Dale have released Conor McBride today, so I'm hoping and praying he goes back to you guys because I'd love to see Conor back there. We do have some... Oh, nice. We have some Formula One chat as well. Nice. That's one for you, Jen. You're our Formula One expert.
I've had enough of this season already. Sick
Football
of
and
massive breaks.
Funny. Chris has put as well, good evening, the wonderful panel, Shah, Ben, Rob and Jen, you beautiful bunch. I do appreciate that. Thank you so much, Chris. Arsenal are 1-0 up against Burnley. Havertz, we've got as well. Chris has put, my dad got a new kitchen put in the house. It was awkward with a temp kitchen, but the kitchen is fully complete now. Thank goodness. Love that. Love that. But before we do go on to our National League South review, the FA Trophy yesterday. So it was Southend versus Wealdstone. It did go to penalties. I didn't watch it, if I'm being quite honest. But Rob, I'm going to come to you first because you did mention a couple of times you did want to get back on with your painting. So it mustn't have been the best game to watch, considering if you don't like painting. So how was the game in itself? And yeah, what happened? If anything did.
Firstly, fairly even, which I think is kudos really to Gary Waddock. I think Southend, the bigger club, finished higher, more weapons at their disposal, if you like. So in that respect, kudos to Gary Waddock. It finished 0-0, spoiler alert. Good one for you, Luke. Yeah, no, I think there was a great save from each keeper, in the first half, and they both had a little bit of a fumble around that they got away with as well. And largely the game was pretty much stalemate, really. It wasn't a great spectacle. Southend won on penalties, largely thanks to Ndeng and D producing a couple of fine saves. I think most notably his first one where he guessed right and he got his full-fisted glove to it on the stretch. So they prevailed on penalties. Credit to Southend. I don't think they over-celebrated winning a penalty shootout, and I think I respect them for that because it wasn't one of those to have joyous scenes. It was more relief, I think, for them, for Kev Mayer to win his first trophy for Southend, for them to actually go to Wembley and win. And so, that was my overwhelming feeling was it was relief for Southend, disappointment for poor old Gary, who has been lucky enough to go to Wembley 5 times and been on the losing side every time. I'm told it was Southend's first win at Wembley as well. So, not too much in terms of individual highlights to pick out from it, really. Did you see it, Ben?
I didn't know, to be honest. I called the last 10 minutes and the stoppage time, and then obviously watched the shootout. And I think I feel sorry for the poor sods that paid money for both the Vase and the trophy final. Because I don't think you would have got too much of money worth. Like I say, you probably had to wait 2 hours for each one. Look, I think over the course of the game, I think the Southend obviously will be, like I said, mightily relieved. Obviously having a really frustrating end to the season. Obviously with playoff heartache, they needed something to get the fans back on side a little bit. Which obviously it's mad to say that really, because I think they've again done a good job against some really big teams that have spent a lot. Look, it will mean a lot to them because, like I said, it's their first ever domestic trophy. They've obviously waited a long time for that. It's probably not the one they would have, loved. They probably would have liked a League Cup or even, like I say, a Papa John's, trophy. But look, an FA Trophy is still a prestigious competition, and it's the most prestigious competition in non-league football. So, they would have taken a lot of credit from that. And, fair play to Wealdstone, because, like I say, a lot of people probably would have looked on paper and thought it'd be an absolute rollover, really. But look, they've shown this season, they're able to compete with the top sides, and they've shocked a few people along the way. and it's something for Gary Waller to build on. Obviously, look, the heartache of him losing at Wembley again will hit him hard maybe for the next few days. But, look, they've got to take a lot of credit of actually getting to the final. First time they've reached Wembley in a very long time. And, they've got something to build on now. And hopefully it might, give them a kickstart to going maybe, one better this next season of getting the trophy.
One quick thing to add. I'm sorry, Shah, I forgot it first.
No, you're fine. Okay.
Just a wonderful moment. The class of the man, Gary Waddock. He didn't lead the team out. He was already on the pitch. I was watching the TV coverage and I'm thinking, something's not right here. Kev Mayer's in front of his players in the dressing room and Gary's out on the pitch already. And bless him, Joe asked Gary after the game for our podcast, which has just come out this evening. He asked Gary about that, and Gary said that he was so impressed with the job that the owner's done at Wealdstone. And when they went to have a walk around Wembley the day before, he pulled the owner and he said, look, I've not been at the club too long. You have done wonders here. I'd love you to have the privilege of leading the team out.
Oh,
and I said, it's just such a class act from Gary. Who in every interview he did after they got to the final was quick to acknowledge the work of his predecessors, So, huge love and huge respect for Gary Waddock. And congratulations to Southend. Did you catch any of it, Jen?
No, I was out watching some football, so I didn't see any of it, unfortunately.
One thing I did want to add as well, obviously on Gary Waddock and what a fantastic job he has done since coming in, and obviously what brilliant job he's done. But on the flip side of it as well, there's still a lot of people talking about the future of Kevin Mayer. I know there's a lot of rumours on social media as well, despite him still having, I think it's a year left on his contract. Will he stay? Will he go? I just wanted to know people's thoughts on that, because I know we've spoke about it not that long ago, and Southend fans were obviously getting quite frustrated with him, but we were all speaking about, I think Joe was there as well, it was ourselves and Joe, and we were talking about how it got them to a playoff final last season. He's obviously got them in the playoffs this season. They got to a final, which they've now won. So despite them and the frustrations, I think they've done absolutely fantastic in the last couple of seasons. But I just wanted to get everyone's opinions on the Kevin Mayer situation, because I think it's very harsh myself.
It is, I think. Look, he's reached the expectations that they should be, which is at least finishing in the top 7 for a club of their stature, at this level. They've been up against some tough teams the last couple of seasons where, they're getting to 95. Obviously this season over 100 points. I think next year would be a very different kettle of fish, given the fact that it'd probably be, the likes of Carlisle obviously will be probably at the moment maybe the strong favourites to win the title next season if they manage to keep hold of a lot of those players. But look, they feel like the next year has got to be their year. I think look, they've been at this level now for I think it's 4 years now, is it 4 or 5 years? And look, they've obviously had a lot of troubles off the field, which obviously have been sorted out now. So it's almost like there's no excuse now for them not to go for it. I mean, again, they are going to have some clubs coming in for some of their top players, the likes of Gus Scott Morris. Who's going to be in for a lot of interest, I'm sure, from the EFL clubs. Whether they can keep hold of him is another matter. So I think the treatment that Kevin Mayer's had, particularly after the job he done under such tough circumstances, and even now, obviously, with the funding he's had, he's still able to get him, higher up in the league and look, a playoff final, about 10 minutes away from getting promoted, FA Trophy win. So, look, he's not doing a bad job. And I think, next year is a big, big year for him if he does stay. So, it really does depend. Football can change so quickly over the coming days, and hopefully over the next couple of weeks we'll have a bit more of an idea in his future, really.
Definitely. Just quickly in the chat as well, we are doing the North. That will be next week, the season review. It is the South this week. So if you're interested in National League South, or you just want to hear a bit how teams have done throughout the season, please do. Or if you just want to have a look at the template and how we do it for next week's show, which will be all about the North. And then the following week will be National League. So what I'm going to do before we get to it, a couple of things. So the graphics, first and foremost, Sam has worked so hard doing them. So thank you so much to Sam for that. There may be some mistakes, there may not be mistakes. Sam is only human. So if there is any mistakes, then please don't point them out in that kind of manner, because like I said, he's done a fantastic job. And he's also mentioned there may have been some managerial changes throughout the season, but in all the graphics, he has put who the manager was at the end of the season. So I just wanted to point all of them out first before we do obviously bring up the graphics. So what I'm going to do, because it's a new template I need, so we're going to go really small for the second. We look like proper miniature. We look like the borrowers, don't we? But yes, so we're going to go, obviously, bottom of the table, all the way to the top of the table. So we have got Eastbourne Borough. So Ben, I'm going to come to you first on Eastbourne Borough. As we've mentioned, 24th position, not a good season for them. They have been relegated, but what are your thoughts overall?
It's probably the biggest shock of the season, to be honest, really, given, they were, 2 points off the title last season. And they knew they probably got recruitment wrong over the summer. Matt Gray, obviously, when everyone looked at him, he came in, he thought that's a good choice of management, considering what he did at Sutton. So, probably a lot of, optimism around there. And for just one reason or the other, it's just gone absolutely horribly wrong for them. I think they've relied a lot on younger players, and it just hasn't come to fruition. Obviously, they've been through, I think it's 2, 3. Yeah, they've been through 3 managers now this season. And obviously all of them are very experienced. And obviously, top scorer Pemi, they lost a lot, because I think he had 15 goals by about November time. So, that was a huge loss to them, and he got recalled to his parent club. But look, it just hurts me, the fact that, particularly for Joe as well, 3 of the home wins, 2 of them, one of them against us and one of them against Torquay. So it shows that, we did try to give them a helping hand. It didn't work, but look, they've got a big job in their hands, because they're going into a tough Isthmian League division next season. And Steve King he assembles good teams, but it's a case of, can he get over the line? He hasn't done it for a very long time, and he's going to have to get off to a very good start there next year. But it's just such disappointing, and also the amount of money that's gone into that club as well. This year, that's going to hit them so hard financially, and obviously the support base, their attendances were going lower and lower during the season, which you can't blame supporters for. When obviously the football's been so bad for them, but overall, a very, very disappointing season for a club of their stature and with the resources they have.
Anybody else got anything to add on Eastbourne?
Just to say that, really, obviously, Steve King's pitch is up there. He's only really been in charge for the last few games. They started this season, of course, with Matt Gray, who's been announced this week as the new Eastleigh manager. And some people, I like and I rate Matt Gray. And, of course, his one previous job, he got promoted to the Football League with Sutton. But obviously, if you look at the job he had and did at Eastbourne in isolation, he left them bottom of the league about a third of the way through the season to get an appointment at a division higher at the end of that is probably more based on his previous job and his previous success. The former Shots manager, Tommy Widdrington, obviously came in. And I don't know really enough about the detail of who was there and what was going on and off the pitch, etc. But I was a little surprised. I did think Tommy might be able to inject a bit of his, chaos football and a few wins amongst. But there wasn't enough wins, and he departed as well. From such a hopeful season the season before, I agree with you, Ben. I'll be surprised if we look at a club in this division out of the other 23 and go, oh, my God, that was just so not expected, what happened. We've had some good players, haven't they? Where's George Alexander ended up the season, Ben? I can't keep up with him.
Well, he went into a promoted side, didn't he, in Hornchurch at the end of it? So he's had a good end of the season. And that's the thing, they lost key players like that, at such key stages. They had a lot of experience in that team as well. Like, Jack Jebb as well, who's, played at much higher level, and Adam May came in towards the end of the season. But they desperately tried, to get players in that would do a job for them, not just to get bodies in. And they probably overspent a little bit more than they would have wanted to. But look, if you don't try, you don't succeed. And look, if it's the owner's money, Simon Leslie wants to put in, then absolutely fair play to him, for doing that. But obviously, it's going to hit him hard, probably more than anyone else at the club, to be honest. And he's got a massive rebuild job now. So I think they've gone back to part-time as well next season. So, they've got a massive, massive rebuild job in their hands.
Right. We're going to move on to the next one. So in 23rd position, also relegated, Enfield Town. Does anybody want to start off with Enfield Town? I'll let you decide amongst yourselves.
I went there once this season, so just a quick one on that. Club with a bit of character about it. They are always going to be pushing uphill at this level. They've managed to stay there, didn't they, for a little while? But difficult one. They don't have great resources, and they did have one or two decent-looking players, one or two of which have moved on now. The one who impressed me in that game was Adon Malachi, and I'm delighted to say that he's now an Aldershot Town player. So well done, Scotty, for that one, and all the best to Enfield. Is the manager correct? I'm not sure it is, and I don't want to highlight.
Adam McPherson, yeah. No,
I think Steve Pitt's at Braintree, but anyway, not to worry. Difficult season for Enfield. That's all I would say, and probably they've been punching to stay up.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think they probably make a word of it, the fact they've probably got arguably the smallest budget in the league. As Rob says, like the resources aren't the best, for this level for them. I mean, people have to remember they are fan owned. They obviously can only go so far with what they've got, but they've got a very good, base of where they want to go to. They've been pushing to get into this level for a long time, and obviously they've managed to do 2 years of it. I think I've just seen Luke's comment as well about 14 goals from Sam Youngs. I think that's all from midfield as well, I'm pretty sure. He's one of their outstanding players. He's been there for a long time, and he's done tremendously there. I mean, they were always going to struggle in the forward areas. When they saw the likes of Harry Lodovic, who absolutely flopped at Maidstone. I always knew that it wouldn't go right for them. I mean, they probably relied a lot on the likes of Lamar Reynolds, who's been at this level for, been involved in some good teams at this level. And they just didn't have quite enough. I mean, they weren't a terrible side. I mean, obviously, I can only speak from our experience, the fact that we beat them 8-0. But, in the away game up at their place, they would look every bit as a side that, had a bit of fight about them. And obviously, Gavin McPherson now obviously stepped down as manager, which, again, I think he's done his bit there. Like, look, they've massively overachieved. Their great escape last season as well, when I think everyone thought they were down in January. They went on this unbelievable run to stay in the division, and they will come back, I'm sure. They won't get stuck back down in the Ishmael Premier, I don't think, for too long. But they are very much a top-end Ishmael Premier club, very low National League South club at the moment. That's just where they are as a club.
Next, so in 22nd, we do have Chippenham Town. Ben, I will come to you first on this one. Thoughts on Chippenham and their season?
It's just looking at it. It's just that away record that's killed them this season. The home record's actually not that bad.
Yeah,
it's probably around about maybe sort of the mid-table sort of side, really. But away from home, I don't know what it is. They've just massively struggled. I mean, I have to admit as well, one of those 4 draws, they got against Worthing. They were 2-0 up as well with about 10 minutes to go, and they fell to a late 2-2 draw. I mean, they got off to a very, very difficult start to the season. Where I think they were bottom of the league for a long time, and everyone just thought, that they're going to go down. They might get a very, very low point tally, but throughout the season, Gary Horgan, they stuck with him, the club, and they've obviously tried to back him as much as they can. And it's a really difficult one because at home they do make their ground a fortress. It is a very difficult venue to go to for, I guess, some of the more bigger clubs in this level, because you don't know what you're going to get from Chippenham. But, look, again, a bit like Enfield, given the resources that they have at their disposal, I think they've massively overachieved. You know, they've been in this division now for I think about a decade now, which, you know, is a testament to them as a club. And they're one of the clubs I really hope to see back, because I've got a lot of time for the people down at Chippenham, you know, the way they run the club, you know, the people that look after you there. It's a proper family feel club. And, you know, it's a massive shame for them because, you know, again, I think we all predicted they'd probably end up 14th, 15th like they usually do. I think it's just proved one season too many for them. But, you know, again, they're one of those clubs that I think we'll definitely see back in National South in not too distant future.
Yeah, definitely. And hopefully as well, 21st, we do have Bath City. I do have a comment as well. Bless him. He has put Elliot Dugout. Sad that my Bath got relegated. Hope we can bounce back. So Bath City also, they did finish in 21st, also a relegated team. Who wants to talk about Bath City?
Just about the manager, really. His third club of the season. Started the season at Weston-super-Mare. Got the Eastleigh job. Was relieved of his duties there. Came in at Bath and got something going, I think, towards the end, but it wasn't enough to keep them up. Not seen them play. So that's it from me on Bath. Ben, anything else? Jen?
I mean, they got, you know, they just left it, like say, a bit too late. I think had they made the decision to get, you know, to part ways with Darren Way earlier, I think they would have maybe had a fighting chance because they were a good side. And, you know, look, it just shows where they were this year when Scott Wilson ends top goal scorer with 8 goals and he was on loan for most of the season at Weston-super-Mare. So that tells you how much of a difficult season it's been for them. And goal scoring has been a massive problem for them, not just this season, but in the last, you know, sort of couple of years. And, you know, they are a side. I mean, you look at it defensively. I mean, I'd say at home, it's not actually that bad. You know, 33 goals in 23 games, you know, for a side that's finished in the bottom 4 is actually not that bad. But the goal scoring's let them down massively. But with Scott Bartlett now in charge, you know, he gets to get the players in he wants. You know, the Southern Premier is a very difficult division to get out of, particularly when you've got Chippenham, you know, want to bounce back. Having a Waterlooville as well will want to, you know, go up. You know, they're really going through it. We've signed the likes of Paul McCallum this week. So, you know, it's not going to be an easy journey for Bath. It might take them a couple of years to come back up. Yeah. But again, they're a club that, you know, that I really hope to see back because they've got, for me, probably one of the best grounds in the division. I love going to Twerton Park and I'm really going to miss not going there next year. But yeah, look, they're very much underachieved and they shouldn't be down in the 7th tier for me. But, you know, they just, again, haven't got the resources that a lot of the clubs, you know, would love at this level. And, you know, again, it's cost them, unfortunately.
Just going back to the comments now, this made me laugh from Luke. He's channeling his inner Graham with a dad joke. Bath need to scrub down and go again next season. Luke has put. And Steve has also put, Bath will come straight back up with Bartlett, but their recruitment since he finished 6 2 years ago has been shocking. Do you agree with that, Ben, with a nod of the head?
Yeah, I think they've got in a couple of experienced players. I mean, so they've got the likes of Alex Fisher this year, who's played at National League level with the likes of Yeovil. You know, again, he's had a bit of time with injury as well, and you know, it just I don't know what it is. I think, like I said, their recruitment have just not got the right sort of players. And it is a difficult place for them, where, you know, the area that the club's in, almost it's an attractive club to play for. You know, personally. But I just don't know. I think they've got a lot of teams competing in and around that area, you know, for the same players. And you know, look, I don't know what it is about Bath because, you know, they've always kept a good core of their squads, you know, every year. Yeah. And like I say, when they finished in the playoffs a couple of years ago, they were an excellent side defensively. You know, they were so hard to break down. And then, you know, obviously that's clearly been a problem for them. I mean, goalkeeper wise, you know, I think it's Charlie Binns. I think it's the goalkeeper. You know, I think he put in an outstanding performance at Dorking just before the end of the season. And he was a sort of, you know, character he thought goalkeepers will get you points across the season. And, you know, he's only as good as his back four. And his back four obviously have let him down at times. And, you know, there were a couple of people not liking the likes of Danny Greenslade as well. You know, he's, again, I think had a tough season. I think a lot of, you know, supporters weren't on big fans of his. Again, an ex-Chippenham as well. But, yeah, I think recruitment has just been, I'm not saying they need a massive clear out. I mean, they can probably keep a good 4 or 5 players, I think, from that side. But I think they do need a massive reset going into you know, what will be a very competitive division next season.
Just for anybody who has joined late, because I know there's a couple in the chat, this is our National League South season review. So we will be covering all of the teams in their season, so far, obviously, from the bottom all the way to the top. So I just wanted to let everybody know who has joined, that is what we are doing. So 20th, we do have Dover Athletic. They just avoided relegation. Who wants to talk about Dover? One thing that I have noticed as well, apart from the couple at the bottom, they do have a consistent goal scorer, don't they? Like, you've got people hitting the likes of 14s, 15s. Yet again, with Dover Athletic, another player hitting 15. So despite them being obviously near the bottom, you are getting that consistent goal scorer with some of the teams there, aren't you?
Yeah, I think that's the thing. It's like, I mean, obviously taking Bath out of the equation, the fact, that just shows with 8 goals. If you're going to stay up, you do need someone that might get you 20, 25 goals a season. I always said the same about, I think it was Hungerford Town when they were in the division. They weren't probably the best equipped to be in this league, but they had Ryan Seeger who could score you 20, 25 goals a season that would keep you up. There was those sort of players, that would, be there when it mattered. And, again, these sides have obviously had the consistent, like I say, goal scoring. 15 in a side just avoiding relegation isn't a bad return at all. I'm pretty sure it's probably better than our ones, to be honest. Like, I wouldn't be surprised by it at all. But, I think from Dover's perspective, George Nickard, I think if everyone's seen as well this week, he's just got to move to Dorking Wanderers. So, and that's going to be a huge, huge miss for Dover, because he's a man they've relied on a lot for goals the last 2 or 3 seasons. And I can really see him struggling next year. But look, they've done the job that was expected of them. They came back into this league, and their aim was to stay in the division, and they've done that. I think a lot of them had them tipped to go straight back down again. And I think without the George Nickard, I think they would be looking at Isthmian League football again. But Jake LaBelle's got them over the line. They have got to recruit very well in the summer. It's going to be very difficult given where they are, in the country, and it's not. Again, it's not the most attractive club to pay for. When you go to Crabble, but they've a historic club. And I'm sure Jake LaBelle's got contacts up his sleeve, and he's going to probably aim for a lot of players in the lower divisions if he can, to give them their best chance. But yeah, Nickard will be a massive loss to them.
Definitely. And just on, obviously, season predictions, I'm pretty sure I actually had them to go straight back down again. It's probably why they've surprised me and stayed up, because honestly, my predictions are shocking. Absolutely shocking. But so again,
again though, so defensively, they haven't been that bad. A lot of games. I think I even remember the last time when they got relegated the last time, they weren't getting smacked around like 4 or 5 nils and that. They were losing games by the odd goal. And again, a bit like Bath, goal scoring has been a problem for them. I mean, you've scored 22 goals away from home. They just lacked that attacking threat at times, and that cutting edge in the final third. They had a number of chances against us when we went up there, to Crabble. So, I think they need to replace Nickard properly with a goal scorer that will get him at least 20 a season. Otherwise, I think they'll be looking at a very long season next year.
Yeah, definitely. And just letting you all know as well, if there is a point where any of you do want to interject, please do. Please do. 19th vote, a team that doesn't do my northern accent justice. We have Farnborough. Ben, I think you mentioned, didn't you, that you did want to touch on Farnborough in our group chat. So I will let you talk about those first.
I mean, for Farnborough, it's been a very difficult season, given the fact that actually a lot of people had hyped him up, and probably including myself at the start of the season when they brought in probably 2 of the deadliest strikers in the league, like Rakesh Bingham and Don Polion coming on. And straight away, I was like, okay, with Mason Bloomfield alongside it, they could really, have a go at going for the playoffs. And so they probably felt like they've underachieved actually a little bit this year. And Spencer Day does talk a lot about the budget there. That it's obviously not the biggest, but you can't tell me they didn't have the biggest, a small budget when they've got 2 very, very experienced strikers at this level that will get you probably 50 goals between them if they could on their day. That's what they managed at Ebbsfleet. And again, lost Polion towards the end of the season to Hornchurch, when they probably would have needed him at that time. But Bingham's obviously come up with it, and just about kept them in the league again. They'll be really disappointed, I think, with the season they've had. And a lot of people have called for Spencer Day's head, over the course of the campaign. But I've got to give him some credit, actually, because towards the end, he did he did.
Wrap me up.
But I think, as Steve says, 92 goals conceded. They've just been absolutely horrendous defensively, and they were getting some games where they were getting battered 5 and 6s, and just didn't have any reply to it. It just looked a mess at the times at back, and they've had a lot of things go off the pitch as well. With Jake Turner as well. There was a whole saga about him when he was being pushed out, or moving on to another club. They didn't want him, and again, that probably didn't help the situation either. So they've got. I mean, it's a club I'm looking forward to going back to next year. I love going to their ground. And again, they're very friendly people at Farnborough, and hopefully they'll have a better campaign next time round. But they've got to replace goals now because Bingham's now gone off to Farnham, and with Polo on at Hornchurch, there's plenty of options now that they need to look at if they are to keep continuing their tenure in this league.
Definitely, and tighten up that defence too. It's a massive, honestly. That's something we definitely need to do, considering the amount of goals they have conceded. As Steve did mention, 92.
I did just a quick one on Farnborough. I actually managed to get along there twice this season, both because it's only 5 miles from Aldershot. So the 2 12:30 kickoffs Aldershot had at home this season, or 2 of the ones they had, I managed to nip along and see Farnborough against Dorking and Farnborough against Slough. They were perfectly timed fixtures because obviously Mark White and Scotty Davis were the opposition managers, who probably the 2 managers I know the best in the division. Ironically, Farnborough won both of those games 2-0. So I'm scratching my head a little bit. I'm sure if Spencer was here with us, he'd tell us how they punch above their weight every year. This year, they nearly didn't. That's basically what happened. But Rakesh Bingham, obviously Dom Polion, Billy Clifford was there for a while. Aaron Cool was out for a big chunk of the season injured, and he's a very, very good player at this level. And I forget his name now. Ricky Holmes, that's it. He was there, and he I think he's gone as well, has he? Or
he's at Chelmsford at the moment.
Yeah, that's it. So some very, very good players through there. The other thing was on Spencer Day. Is he possibly, definitely, I don't know, the longest serving manager in the National League South, or of a club anyway, because he's been at Farnborough some years now, hasn't he, Ben?
Well, you've got to take Mark White out of the equation on that. I would say. I think if you are excluding Mark, he's got to be very close. I don't think there is that many managers in this division that have survived more than probably 2 or 3 seasons. So I would probably 95% say that he's probably the longest serving in this division, I think. And again, look,
in the division, that's what I was thinking. And what I was thinking was that a club that's been in the same division, and the manager, of course, I'm going to think on my feet and say I didn't include Mark because he spent a season or 2, in fact, in the top league, didn't he?
Yeah, so true.
Think I got out of that one.
Right. Farnham have taken at least 2 of their players.
Yeah.
And we have a question too. How many clubs are professional or on a hybrid mode in the National League South?
It's still very, I think you're probably looking about nearly maybe half the division, I think, at least hybrid. I think there's still a high number of part-time teams in that division. I mean, obviously, I think that most of the clubs in that top 7 are probably hybrid, I would say. I think, Worthing, I think they are. Well, Hornchurch is a typical part-time, Torquay full-time, Dorking, semi-full-time. So there are still, a number of clubs that are just operate normally at a 2 evenings a week basis. I think Tunbridge Angels, are looking to change to 2 mornings a week from next season onwards. So again, I guess you can sort of class that as hybrid a little bit, really, because obviously it goes out a bit of the ordinary. Yeah. But look, it's but I think that's a credit still to a lot of the teams in the division that they're still able to compete, with the top side. And I've always found, to be honest, that the whole time, full time and part time hasn't made a difference because it's still just been as competitive as it always has been. Eastbourne Borough, the prime example of that, full-time, probably one of the most full-time clubs in the division, and they finished bottom. So just shows that it doesn't always work. You might get some benefits out of it. You might get more time with the players, but it doesn't guarantee success. So, for the clubs that operate part-time, fair play to them because it's a tough division to compete in.
Right. So next, we do have 18th, Hampton and Richmond. Who wants to talk about Hampton and Richmond and their season?
I mentioned Dow and Jen. I'm really conscious. Did you want? Is there what? Please go first as soon as there's one that you want to talk about. Feel like me and Ben
No,
hogging
it's
it.
fine. No, it's fine. I was just gonna say, obviously, like away form and stuff like that, they aren't too bad, and they have got like goal scorers, obviously in Reece, but they've also got a couple of others as well that managed to grab a few goals as well. So it's not like they are a bad team, and they probably don't deserve to be down where they were, but somehow they managed to survive, and that's the main thing you've got to do in leagues like this. You have to try your hardest to survive, because once you go down out of these leagues, it's so hard to get back up, incredibly hard.
Yeah, do you think, Ben, on Douse coming in, that was kind of a canny move? They were in a bit of danger, weren't they? And he was able to hit the ground running, wasn't he, by going back there? Of course, he'd had success previously with them, getting them up to that level. And he's one of the nicest blokes in football, and I think we're all good. I think it just felt like a match, didn't it, when he went back there? And I'm pleased to see that he steered them relatively comfortably to safety in the end.
Yeah, I did feel a little bit for Alan Julian, the fact that, he done with the resources that he had. I think he'd done a good job. And again, he's going to go into a similar project with Slough next season. And I think Dowson, he's just come in and sort of stabilised, the ship a little bit.
Yeah.
And he's just gone back to basics a little bit with them. I'm pretty sure we were one of their first games, that he took charge of. And, they looked a lot more well organised. I've probably seen them in the games maybe prior to that. I think they just needed a little bit of experience. They had the likes of Alan Massey at the back. You don't get more experience than him at this level, in that defence. And then obviously he was able to bring in, the likes of Max Kretschmar as well as a player coach, again, a very established player, played at National League level with Wildstone and Woking. So, Dowse has, I think, done exactly what the assignment would have been to him. And I think I put Hampton as finishing in the bottom four this season, just because the players they were signing were a lot of them from lower leagues, and I just thought they were going to struggle. But look, they've added a bit of experience along the way. Rhys Grego-Cox, again, is one of those sort of players that again has had National League exposure. So coming to this level wouldn't have been a problem for him. And he probably hasn't got as many goals as he would have liked. Again, a very low scoring, sort of forward for him. But look, Dowson is known this level before. Obviously, he's done it with Dartford as well, and in various other clubs. But yeah, I'm sure he'll be happy that he can have a little bit more relaxing summer. But he won't want to sit in his laurels, as you probably well know, Rob. From his time with the shots, he'll want to push him on and get him back towards the top 7, because I feel like they should be pushing towards that.
Definitely. There's a lot of people as well in the chat who have a lot of kind words to say about him too. So yeah, I love that. Anything anybody else wants to add on Hampton and Richmond before we move on?
Nope. No, not really.
Nope. So next we do have in 17th position Salisbury.
They've done a fairly good job, to be fair. And again, just shows how much home form matters in this league. The comparison between home and away is good as you'll get, to be honest, because look, it is their home record is why they're staying in a division, because you look at it, 18 goals in 23 away games is, from probably their perspective, nowhere near good enough. And, look, on their travels, they've just struggled. It really is hard to put it, because sometimes when you go away from home, you feel like there's a little bit less pressure on you. I always found that as well, because, especially you've got your home crowd behind you and things start going wrong, it can be hard to get yourself out of it. But, at home, they've just seen it as, an opportunity to push themselves. And again, I think they've overachieved this season, I think, Salisbury. But, again, I think I tipped them as probably to do well at the start of the season, because the sort of players are bringing the likes of Matt Briggs and Tommy Willard. Yeah. I thought they could really, maybe have a go pushing towards maybe that 7th spot. But it was evident from the start that it just wasn't going to happen. And that Nolan Coppin's been very experienced. I think he's been at Salisbury for quite a while now. And, look, Brian Dutton will be, delighted that they've got another year in this league, because, and also done it fairly comfortably in the end. They weren't really in, for me, any massive danger of going down. But again, they were never really, pushing towards the top half finish at all, really. So A lot of lessons for them to be learned, but I think from their club's perspective, I think they'll be absolutely delighted that they'll get another year in this league because again they haven't got the biggest amount of resources in comparisons. People still traditionally talk about them as a National League club, that they have been a few times in their history, their previous incarnations. And I think maybe this time they're doing it a little bit more slowly and just trying to build their way up again. But I'm sure they will get back there at some point in the future.
Yeah. I just wanted to say as well, if anybody in the chat supports any of these teams and wants to give a little bit of an analysis about their season and their thoughts on it, or if they do want to have their thoughts and their say on any of the teams, please do. I am more than happy to read them out as well. We are all about interaction on here, aren't we? We do have Chris as well, and he's put Salisbury are one of the newer clubs in the league. Am I right? They used to be Salisbury City, I'm sure.
Yeah, they did.
Yes.
Yeah, we've had a few meetings with them in the past, and I think this is their second season at this level, or back at this level. So yeah, again, they've done their job that was expected of them, and again the same will probably expect of them this next season if as long as they get their recruitment right again. But I think they'll be probably down towards that bottom half again at this earlier stage. That's what I would think anyway.
Yeah. Right. In 16th, we do have Slough Town. Rob, I am going to come to you on this one. Scotty Davis is the manager. He did end the season with Slough Town. Obviously not the manager now, but what were your thoughts on Slough this season?
They got themselves comfortably before the end of the season safe. Yeah. I think they've always been punching. One of the lower resource sides in the division. Scotty's got a tremendous consistent record at finding fresh young players, getting a little bit out of them, developing on a bit, and then getting them up to a higher level. Two that spring to mind is Victor Mikowski, who obviously started had most of the season there, then went to Worthing and carried on banging in goals for them. Adam Dubois at the other end got his move to Gateshead. So we've talked a lot, and I know that a lot of the chat around the recruitment for clubs in general at the moment is the two key positions, the goalkeeper and the centre forward. And there you go. The two that he had, Adam Dubois and Mikowski, both of them moved on within the season. So that's the kind of thing that Scotty's been up against. Somebody, and I haven't checked this out, but somebody mentioned on social media the other day that Slough Town had the same record for goals scored and goals conceded as Aldershot Town, one level higher this season. I don't know where that sits in Slough's history. I do know that sadly Aldershot conceded more goals in the season than they've ever done before as a football club. What I take from this as well, I mean, listen, we're all fans of Scotty as a person, and I'm really looking forward to the job that hopefully he's going to do at Aldershot. But one thing I know for sure, there's a tradition at Aldershot, and that is that the games are entertaining. And after Tommy Widrington and after John Coleman, where by and large the entertainment level factor didn't really change, I don't think it's going to change under Scotty. He only knows one way: go forward, quick, pacey, powerful, direct. Yep, there's going to be a few gaps at the back, yeah, that's it. I was on the couple of times I saw them. To be fair, when I saw them play at Farnborough and lose 2-0, their entire bench was youngsters. Yeah. They were down to really bare bones by that stage. Yeah. And I think it was just as well, Ben, that Slough had got that wonderful run. I think it was 5 or 6 wins on the trot.
Yeah,
that got them to safety, and it was just as well the way they were kind of out of gas and out of players towards the end of the season.
Yeah, I think towards the end, I think, like I say, they just run out of steam, which is understandable. Like I say, given the injury crisis they've had pretty much all season, and look, they've got a good academy to be fair at Slough, but it's a big difference, coming from there into men's football, and not just into men's football, but the 6th tier of the English game, where you've got very experienced players that have been there and done it at much higher level. And I think again, if Scotty is assessing it, he'd be saying a job well done again, to be honest, because look, Slough's expectations are just managing to stay in this league, and try and be, an absolute nuisance to some of the bigger clubs. And they have taken scouts this year, yet again, as they usually do. And I think obviously losing Mikowski at the time probably wouldn't have been a good time for them. But I think just because, like I say, they'd already got that, like I say, that run together, and we're pretty much there safe. They were sort of dipping slowly back towards what would have maybe been a relegation battle for them. But but when we saw them come down to us, I think when they went a goal down, that second half they were absolutely brilliant. They were, in terms of their organisation, how they stuck together as a team, and their quality actually in the final third. And I know they've kept the likes of Ruben Jack Poke, who's a player I know really well, and again, I think that's a good coup for them. He hasn't got any, probably I'd say, standout attributes, but he's a reliable player. And again, he'll get you a few goals next year. Maybe not, maybe so much as what Mikowski did. But look, they've stayed up comfortably yet again, which for Slough fans they'll be absolutely be relieved about, because they love being in this division. And
yeah.
And look, like I think as Steve just put, at least the fact is they lost Mikowski, but they got a fee for him, because a lot of players could have probably gone for absolutely nothing. So it was probably the right time for them to cash in on him, and I could probably understand why Scotty would have done that. But look, job well done, I think, for Slough, and I'm sure I'd like to think Steve would agree on that.
And a question for you, Ben, and maybe Steve, if he's quick at typing, can come back on this. The players, 2 or 3 of them that have now since moved on to Aldershot. So Basil Tuma, who's signed today, been released by Reading. And also I wanted to ask you about Oshilaja as well. Are they players that's impressed you when you've seen them, or?
Yeah, I mean, well, Tuma, I'm pretty sure, was a big problem when we played against them, especially at the Gallagher. They've always, like I said, been reliant on, the players they bring in, and they've probably taken chances on a lot of players. But look at them. They obviously knew the quality they were bringing in, because, as you said, Rob, they pushed a lot of them, to better clubs, also bigger clubs, and into the higher leagues. And that's just a testament, not just obviously to Scott and his management team, but also the recruitment, team as well. And it is going to be, interesting to see in the summer what Alan Julian does, if they can sort of replicate that. That'll be a difficult task for him, because, Scott's been around the game for a long time, as obviously as Jules has as well. But, look, Scott's obviously knows his level very, very well. He's played a lot of his career down in sort of lower reaches of non-league football, sort of this tier and the tier above. So he would have known what the expectations were, and sort of the sort of players you need to get results on the pitch. And they do have some players that are far, as Steve says, some of them are too good for this level. They just never had quite an all-round team, which has always been a problem for them. They've always had a good 3 or 4 that will get you results, on their own, to be honest. That's just again, it shows an absolute testament to what they've done as a club down there. And, they've got a difficult job in the summer, because, they've been used to consistency for so long. And is that going to change? So, but I hope from their perspective it does.
I just wanted to ask you as well, Jen, because as Rob mentioned, we are all massive Scotty Davis fans on this podcast, aren't we? And I know, obviously, we do have an experienced manager now for next season, but overall, do you think Slough will miss Scotty Davis, because he's just been such an influential, I can't say it, that word, an amazing figure around that club. So do you think it will be a loss regardless to them?
Yeah, I definitely think it'll be a loss. It's a huge loss when you lose someone like that who has had a huge impact on the club, the players, community, fans, everything. It's huge when they do leave. But as a fan of someone who has now left the club, you understand why they have to go. You understand that they've got these opportunities they have to go and do. And I think everyone in Slough will support him in whatever he does. And it's going to be a huge miss, but hopefully they'll be able to bounce back during the off-season and hopefully try and push a bit further up in the table next season.
Definitely. And influential was the word I was trying to say. Not had time to think about it. I got a little bit tongue-tied. It happens.
And just to say good luck to Alan Julian, really, as Ben touched on, we're talking about how experienced Scotty is, but Alan Julian is as well.
Definitely.
He's played and managed at the level and the levels above. So he'll very much be building a new look Slough side next season. Good luck to him.
He's a fantastic character as well. So, I think the Slough fans will really come to like him. If they've seen him, obviously, against his sides in the past, they'll know he's a passionate character on the sideline. So there won't be anything short of that at Arbor Park next season.
Love that. Right. So 15th, we have Horsham. So who wants to talk about Horsham?
There we go, Rob.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? They ran out of players, massive injury crisis. I think we have to break their season into two. Outstanding in the first half of the season to come up to this level, and they were sitting in and around those playoffs for a long while. You wouldn't have believed that they'd actually stepped level. You think they would just stay playing the same level they were last year. I've huge respect for Dom. I only met him once, very, very briefly, ironically at Meadowbank when Horsham had a friendly against Dorking. But I know Mark speaks highly of him, and I think Mark considers him his best managerial mate in football. And there will be extenuating circumstances as to why, in the end, they finished as low as 15th. Of course, 15th, Ben, would have been more than acceptable before a ball was kicked. But it was just that drop-off, particularly. Do you think it was related to the injury crisis largely?
Yeah, I think it's also a bit of that, and also a bit of reality check into the demands of the division. That's the thing, because look, again, I know they play 42 games in the Isthmian Prem, which again is such a competitive division. But I think you find that a lot of teams in this league go right to the end. You see a lot of the top sides and that, they just always seem to find that extra energy. And we when we went down there a few weeks ago, I think it was like our penultimate away game. They just looked like they just run out of steam a little bit, and they were just quite happy to just sort of sit in and just try and make it awkward for us. But as you say, the first half of the season, I don't think they could have dreamt it any better, and it is the whole reason why they are staying in the division for another year. I did have them down as dark horses, to be honest. I thought, I didn't think they would make maybe the playoffs, but I think they could have been pushing towards it. And for a long time, I was proven right. But I just think, I think legs obviously have got to them a little bit. And they have got a lot of experience in that team as well. I think, like I said, they have got a few older bodies in there that maybe just, weren't quite up to it towards the end, and they were probably being relied on quite a bit. But look, you've got, some good players in there, like, say, James Hammond, Charlie Hester-Cook, Shamir Fenelon. Obviously, I know who you'll know really well, not Rob. There's some good talent they have in that team, and obviously you don't get more motivated when you have a manager like Dom DePaola, who's it should have the freedom of Horsham, to be honest, for the job he's done down there. For 10 years when he took over for them as they were going into county league football, and taking them to at one point top 7 of the National League South. He's an absolute legend there for them, and what he's done there to bring everyone together. They used to sometimes get crowds, I remember, about 150, 200 people, when they were ground training at Horsham YMCA. But now, they're getting crowds of sometimes of over 1,000 every game, which, it's obviously not just always down to Dom, it's down to the whole club, the club as a whole. And I think it's a fantastic achievement for what they've done this year. And you just hope they're one of those clubs, and they'll be one of those that everyone will go, they'll have the second season syndrome where they'll probably be in the bottom 4. And I hope it doesn't I hope it doesn't become the case, because they are a very good club down there. And, hopefully they've taken some, lessons from this year and, push on for maybe for a top half finish next season.
And their result of the season had to be the 3-0 win over Mark's Dorking. So every time they go back there, Dorking, he won't thank me for highlighting it, but I think I'm right in saying, Ben, they went there the first year in the FA Cup and lost 1, and then 2 the second year. Now they went there in the league and lost 3. Dorking did manage to beat Horsham at Meadowbank, where their form was a little bit more consistent. But yeah, that would have been a bitter pill for Mark to swallow, going to Horsham for a 3rd consecutive defeat.
Steve has put as well in the chat, Horsham are very structured defensively, but don't create that many chances going forward.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that.
Yeah. So we will move on now to Tonbridge Angels in 14th.
Off you go, Ben.
Oh God, this lot. Right. Look, I'm gonna give them some credit, and you might have to time me on this for 30 seconds because the rest of it I don't want to speak about it. But no, I'm joking. No, look, do you know what? All massive juice to Tonbridge, because I had them down to finish, I think, probably bottom of the league. when I looked at their recruitment in the summer and obviously the manager they brought in, I just thought they're not going to be able to cope with the division this year. And, you know, they made the call at probably a good time, to be honest, to part way with, I think it was Nelson, the manager. And, you know, obviously brought in Alan Dunn. You know, look, it was a bit of a gamble in a way because it's his first, you know, proper managerial job, because obviously he's been assistant at Bromley for a few years, under obviously with Andy Woodman and obviously Neil Smith as well. So, you know, it could have gone either way for him, but he suddenly got a reaction out of them. And, you know, I think that they'll tell us, obviously, that, you know, when they beat us in the last minute down at Gallagher, that really galvanised them, you know, as supporters and the players, because they knew they were in it together. And, you know, they managed to pull away from it very comfortably in the end and, you know, picked up some very, very good results on, you know, on the way. And, you know, I'm thankful that we've managed to acquire Mr. Tom Leahy for next season for us. So the player we had before. So again, they've got to manage to replace some goals in there. And obviously they've, as I've touched on earlier, the fact they're looking to go to 2 mornings a week. How that's going to affect maybe the players they get in, I'm not sure, because it is a very difficult one, because it's obviously not your typical 3 mornings a week, like hybrid, like a few clubs in this division have. Yeah. So, you know, it's a completely different model. And, you know, look, I think if Alan Dunn wanted to, he wants to go to daytime training. He's been adamant about it for a long time. And I mean, a few people, himself included, would say that if a lot of refereeing decisions had gone their way, they'd be in the top, you know, pushing towards the top 7, which I don't fully agree with, to be honest, because you are where you are deserve to be. But I think if you'd offer them 14th place after the pre-season predictions they got, they would have snapped your hand off for that. So, you know, all credit to Tunbridge. And it's not one of the games I'm looking forward to next year, to be honest. But look, if you're looking from a neutral perspective, it's a great achievement for them, given the squad they had at the start of the year. And, you know, they've got another crack at this division next year, which they'll be looking to push towards top half.
Right, I am going to go now to 13th, Dagenham and Redbridge. Before I do come to you, Bo Rob, I'm going to come to you, Jem, because it's been a little bit of a roller coaster for Dagenham this season. Managerial changes, ended the season with Andy Carroll. They have now got Lee Allinson in as manager, which I think is a fantastic appointment, may I add. And ownership, they do have a certain Mr. Famous KSI involved. So I'm going to come to you and ask you what you make of their season, apart from a little bit of a roller coaster.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. It's been a roller coaster. It's been a bit up and down for them, hasn't it? And I do feel quite bad for him, because obviously the home form's been great at home. It's been fantastic. But then they go away and somehow it just falls apart. But many clubs are like that. It happens. It's just one of them things. Some clubs are better away than they are at home. Some clubs are better at home than they are away. It's the way it works. It has been a bit of a roller coaster for them. I feel like it has been a bit of an entertainment factor for them at times as well. Obviously, with KSI coming in to buy them, then Andy Carroll as manager, it's been a bit of a entertainment. They've been getting backlash on social media and stuff for how much they have been put on his own. But at the end of the day, he's coming to the club. And as someone who has watched him and watched him grow up, and I have grown up with him, he is one of them people that will do what's right for the club and won't just come in, mess it up and walk away. He's very much into his football. He's an Arsenal fan. Wants to help where he can. So I think next season he will really show what he can do, because obviously he came in near like the end of the season, so he couldn't show anything really. But for me, I'm hopeful for him next season. I think they'll be further up the table next season for sure. But yeah, it's been a bit of a roller coaster for them, but hopefully they'll be on the up now.
Rob, your thoughts on Dagenham?
Yeah, there's always something going. It's one of those clubs where there's always stuff going down, isn't there?
Never quiet, is it? Never quiet.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I've been there an awful lot over the years. Dagenham and Redbridge were in the division higher for a considerable amount of years. They seem to consistently underperform, don't they? Under different managers as well. Andy Carroll's now been named as the player assistant manager alongside Lee Allinson for next season. So that's interesting. Joe Haig, interesting that he was top goal scorer. I think that tells you a lot there, doesn't it, really? I really like Joe Haig. He was at Aldershot for a while after he left Chelsea. And I don't think that the timing was great for him. He didn't get many opportunities. He didn't particularly take them either. I had a little look at him when he was at Farnborough. And I think he's certainly starting to be quite consistent at this division now. The one Dagenham and Redbridge home game, I wasn't there, but I watched it closely. I think he scored and got 2 or 3 assists in the same game in a sort of 5-goal victory. So he's a player that I think they're negotiating with, aren't they, for next season? Ben, I don't think he's contracted. You wouldn't think they'd have too much trouble keeping him. I'm not sure if he's ready to step up a level. I think the physicality is a little bit of an issue at times for him, one level higher, but I think he'll potentially be strong again this season. Interestingly, the whole KSI thing, he's a wonderful face for them. He's going to help the growth and the following of them. I think there's a lot been made of his ownership. He's one of a number of people, isn't he? And it's not just him. So it's a collective that are in there. Hopefully they'll invest well, and they'll invest shrewdly as well, with the right players and the right signings. I think one thing we can all ascertain for sure is that 13th will not be acceptable for Dagenham and Redbridge next season. I think they'll start, depending on how the recruitment goes, as one of those favoured to do really well. Ben, don't you? Do you think they're likely to start as one of the top, certainly to finish in the top 7 minimum next season?
100%. They've obviously gone smartly about it, and just acquired a manager which again punched above their weight. After real struggle last season with Hemel, and he's got on to really competing and probably was one of the strong sides in the division. With maybe a few things had gone right from the day, we could have been having a completely different story with Hemel. So if he's again, obviously look, he's managed obviously to keep hold of Andy Carroll, which they've announced today, his player assistant. So again, it's a good head and obviously experience for Lee Allison to work with. 2 ponytails in the coaching department.
I'm going to say that hair on that sideline. Imagine on a windy day, like a lorry.
I know for us, Craig Fagan's going to feel out of place next year with his full head. But look, it has been a very disappointing season for them. There's no getting away from it. A lot of hopes were put on them to finish in that top 7, but I just felt like maybe with that side, it wasn't quite, like I say, physical enough, or maybe experienced enough to deal with, some of the bigger teams in this league that will just kick lumps out of you. And when the pressure did hit them at times, they did sort of, go under. But look, they've obviously they're settled down. Lee Bradbury did manage to get a bit of a run going, and then it just turns a bit of inconsistency, which obviously meant he went out the door. But look, I think now that KSI will have his feet firmly under the table now, he'll be wanting to desperately get out of this division. Again, this will be interesting to see if they really go for it in terms of the money they spend, because you look at the likes of Farnham Town, who have already been spending good money on good players at this level. So there's going to be a lot of competition for the same players, and Dagenham will be one of those attractive clubs. But again, it's if people buy into the model that they've got there, because obviously it's a very different model. Obviously it's all very social media based, but then again, Dorking have been under that same pressure as well, and it's worked for them, in the previous years. So they're going to have to be ruthless, I think, in the summer. That's for sure, because they can't have another season of mid-table mediocrity, because it's just not good enough for a club of their size in this league. So they've massive summer ahead for those Dagenham fans.
Definitely. One thing I wanted to touch on as well is the fact that they have brought someone like Lee Allinson in, if I'm being quite honest, because I know we've spoke about it. I think it was myself, you, Ben, and Joe, and we were quite impressed with the fact that they've obviously done the due diligence on the managers, how they've done in the league so far. Someone like him, rather than bring in that big name, that they could have easily done so because the limelight was on them. They've done that with Lee Allinson, and I'm really, really interested to see how he goes on at Dagenham, because obviously they've got some more money behind them, obviously more resources and things like that. And I just think this is Lee Allinson's time to shine now at Dagenham, and I'm really hoping they are patient, they do back him, because we all rave about him on here, don't we? We know how much of a fantastic manager he is. I just hope, obviously, we do give him that time and have that patience with him. But I just really think this opportunity for him could really, really put him up there. And I'm just looking forward to seeing how it goes for him.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. Because we said, didn't we? They could have easily gone out, and I know Andy Carroll's his right-hand man, but they could have gone out and easily just got a big name from somewhere, couldn't they? But instead, they thought, do you know what? We'll look at who we can get, who they can kind of bring in to build on Dagenham. And I thought that appointment was fantastic, if I'm being quite honest.
Do we know if his father's, has Ian gone there as well?
I don't know, to be honest. I haven't seen anything personally. I would like to think he has, because then they seem to stick together now, don't they?
Quite a good duo, don't they? And obviously, I didn't know whether he might still be, there as a coach or a member of the management team as well. We'll have to look into that one. Don't know if we've got any Dagenham and Redbridge fans watching us tonight. Perhaps you'll be able to just confirm.
I do have some breaking news. I know it's completely out of finger. Pep Guardiola, and Maresca is going to become manager next season. Wow, it's just Ornstein's put it. When Ornstein puts something, you know it's going to happen. He's very rarely wrong, but wow.
You're not a Fabrizio man, then, are you, Char?
Oh no, I'm an Ornstein man, me.
Oh no.
Oh, don't get me wrong, Fabrizio as well, but
they've obviously announced that with I think one game to go, isn't there? So he gets his send off, I guess. Yeah.
No way. It'd be weird not having Pep Guardiola in the Premier League.
I think the writing was on the wall when his two assistants moved on last week. I think it was evidence that it was going to happen. But 20 trophies in 10 years. Let's hope that ends now.
I'm hoping so. I'm hoping the 115 charges are kicking in. But obviously, we can talk about that on tomorrow's podcast. I do apologise, everyone. It just shocked me. But from Manchester City and Pep Guardiola to 12th position, we have AFC Tottenham. Who wants to cover AFC Tottenham?
He'll absolutely love that. He got mentioned in the same sentence as Pep.
Exactly.
Scotty Rendell's better manager than Pep for me. So
100%.
Yeah, no, I think he's ready for it. He's ready for this challenge, Scotty. He's been getting involved on the coaching side and background in the management at his last couple of clubs, and the opportunity has arisen, hasn't it, with Jimmy Ball moving over to Torquay. A few head-scratching results towards the end of the season. They were safe, weren't they? They were more than safe, and there was a little bit of experimentation going on, also some injuries. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how Scotty does next season, Ben. We're underplaying this, aren't we? First season in the division, and by hook or by crook, and whatever issues they had, losing their manager 2/3 of the way through, they finished in the top half in their first season, Ben.
Yeah, absolutely outstanding season for them, to be honest. And, obviously, again, look at it. What an impressive home record that is, 14 wins out of 23 games. It's no easy feat at this level. Look, I think they'll probably be a little bit gutted, to be honest. You think that if they just had picked up a couple more results on the road, they could have been challenging for that top 7. For long periods of the season, they were in the mix. They were in the talking, too. So, they weren't a million miles off. But I think the concern was at the start of the season is they had a very, very experienced squad in terms of the fact that, they almost had too many old players in that team. So whether they could, keep going for another 46 games was always going to be a massive challenge. But I think they've adapted to the division really well. Look, they've picked up again some very, very good results, at home and against some of the big boys as well. So they've would have taken a lot of positives out of it. And like I say, losing Jimmy Ball at the time they did wouldn't have probably helped their playoff ambitions. But as Rob says, obviously Scott Rendell's someone that both me and Rob will know really well from their times at our club. And, he's a very strong character. He's not afraid to say what's on his mind and that. And he certainly won't be shying away from any laziness from some certain players and that, he will be in there now to push Tottenham now to that next level, because again they're an ambitious club. I think people need to remember that they don't want to just hang around this division for a little bit. They want to be pushing towards National League football if they possibly can. The players they've attained over the last couple of seasons have shown that they've got some ambition. So they've got, again, big summer for Scott Rendell to see what he can do. I'm really interested to see if he can do it across a whole season potentially. But look, he's new and upcoming. He'll have fresh new ideas, and I'm sure that he will at least keep it stable for Tottenham. I'm quite confident of that.
And only 6 draws all season.
I know.
That's got to be about as low as you get, isn't it, across the whole season?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. 11th. We have double trouble for both of them. So 11th, we do have Cheshire United, and we actually have 2 goal scorers, 2 top goal scorers on this one.
Sounds like a firm of solicitors, doesn't it? Vice and Bennett.
I know, it sounds really posh.
Yeah, I didn't see them play, Ben, but all I'd offer, you'll know much more about them. Underestimate this team at your peril, eh?
I had him in the relegation zone, I'm pretty sure. So they fired that one right back down my throat, that's for sure. I mean, what can I say about the job that James Duncan and Michael Murray have done there? Particularly after the successful season they probably had last year, staying in the division, which again obviously would have been their main aim, but to go and push on and it was only into the last final weeks of the season where they let their standards just drop ever so slightly. I must admit, when they beat us, I thought that we were going to be the ones that are out the running and they were going to be the ones pushing for those playoff spots, but they lost a couple of games, to teams in and around them, which ultimately cost them in the end. But they've massively overachieved this year, and as Rob says, you can't underestimate, this team. They are a very, very hard-working side, fight for every ball. It's a very together group there. And when you go down to their ground on that pitch of theirs, which can be a bit of a leveler at times, you're in for a tough afternoon. I mean, 12 wins, at home is evident of that, really. And look, defensively, they've been absolutely fantastic at home. They've averaged 1 goal a game, which is very good, considering some of the attacking threats a lot of teams bring. So, yeah, they've got a lot of positive to take. And I think, actually, they'll probably look at it and think they're actually disappointed not to be in the top 7. I think they've proven themselves that they've been good enough, but just key moments of the season have probably let them down, and maybe that little bit of experience at times. But with both of them, in charge next year, and obviously got plenty of experience. Like I say, Mitchell Weiss is obviously evident of that. With I think he spent a lot of time at St Albans as well, so he's a player that's been around this level for a very long time. And I'm sure that they'll be ambitious to go into that top 7 next year if they can keep a good core of that squad. They're a very good side, Cheshire, and I think that their position is probably underestimated a little bit given what the amount of tough games they've given teams this season. So fair play to them.
Just in a chat as well, I was looking at the Cheshire squad yesterday. They have quite an old team with players that have been there for quite a few years.
Yeah, and I think that's the trouble. I think you need a few younger bodies and that, because, as I said, I don't want to talk about the pitch, but when the pitch does get very heavy, you do want some sort of younger legs to come on and give you that little bit more energy at times. They probably do need a bit of younger blood, but then again, it depends on the way that James Duncan and Michael Murray want to go, to be honest, because I think, to be honest, at this level, you do need that balance of experience and young legs. But I think experience has proven this season in particular that it does get you over the line. Obviously looking at Cheshire, obviously we mentioned just before Tottenham, but then you look at the likes of Enfields and Eastbournes that have probably had young squads this season, which probably just haven't been able to cope with the level. Getting a few older heads in about 32, 33 years of age isn't a bad thing. And a lot of clubs, I would like to think they'll look at that in the summer and go, actually, a couple of those players might just stabilise a little bit, because game management is so important, at this time when there's such fine margins, because everyone beats everyone in this league, so it is a tough one to call. And I'm sure they'll be looking to better on that next year.
Just one quirky little stat, Totton, who finished one place below, had a minus 19 goal difference.
Yeah.
And Chesham, one place higher in the table, had a plus 13. Isn't that
Mad, innit?
staggering? Isn't that staggering that, it's all
Crazy.
about where the goals were scored. And I know Tottenham had
Yeah,
a couple
of
of big, heavy defeats, didn't they, Ben? But
Yeah.
but that is outstanding for Chesham. Not just perhaps more impressive than their 11th place even, is having a plus 13 goal difference across the season, especially when, as you say, pushing on nearly half of the sides in the National League South are either full-time professional or hybrid.
Has anybody else got anything to add on Cheshire before we move on?
Just beautiful graphics. Thank you, Sam.
I know. I love it. I love it. So we are going to the top 10 now. So in 10th position, I know we have Chelmsford City. So who wants to talk about Chelmsford City? Because I tell you what, goal scorer, Lyle Taylor, 20 goals. Absolutely fantastic.
I'll let Ben talk about their season, but I just want to say I saw the video they did with Lyle Taylor the other day and I thought it was brilliant. Really brilliant. Really good original idea. He gave the whole speech as if he was retiring or quitting or leaving. And then he went, see you in July. I thought it was great. Really, really made me smile and laugh that. Quite a charismatic figure, isn't he? I've not seen him play myself, Ben, but 20 goals at any level is always an achievement, isn't it?
Yeah, I think he's just, everyone knew what Chelmsford were getting. He's probably on paper the best forward in the division, given his, vast amount of experience at a much higher level. And at least he's actually proven that on the pitch. He's obviously, a lot of people talks about he's coming for the money. Look, we can talk about that, but look, he's done, the job that is expected of him, and that was to score goals. And he did his part for the team this year, that's for sure. But I think they'll be the first ones to say, Chelmsford, that they have, I would probably say let themselves down this season. Given the massive hype, with the players that they were bringing in the summer, everyone had them, if not to win the league, comfortably. But obviously I had them down to win the playoffs, and just shows that I need to stop being influenced by the amount of money that teams spend, to be honest, because look at, they've obviously finished just above Chesham, and I dare say there's a big difference in budgets between those two sides.
Yeah.
And, look, when you've got a front line, the likes of, Jack Barr and Lyle Taylor, and there's plenty of others they've been bringing in throughout the season, you just think, how did this team finish, where they did, 4 points off the playoffs, which again, obviously, led to them letting Angelo Harrop go. And will people probably say, was it a little bit too late to do that? Possibly. They just weren't, for me, obviously taking Taylor out of the equation, they just weren't ruthless enough in front of goal. And that's been the big problem for them. Everyone probably expected them to score 80, 90 goals this season at the very least, and they've just let silly points, slip away. At key times, I think they conceded a lot of late goals as well this season, which, it's a result business and it costs you, So it's been a tough season for Chelmsford, way below expectations their supporters would have expected, and with Mark Cooper going in there next season, now they'll have nothing less on their minds than to win the league next year. That's got to be their aim. And, anything less than promotion next year, if they put in the same amount of resources they have done this year, will be sort of almost an embarrassment to them, to be honest. So, a lot of pressure on Spencer Guardiola over the summer to make sure he helps to bring in the right players for Mark Cooper, because it could be another difficult one otherwise for them.
Yeah, just quickly, I think Jack Barham was out injured for a huge chunk of the season.
He was, yeah.
Wasn't he? In fairness, I kept looking for his name on the score sheet, and it was a few weeks before I realised that he was out injured. I wondered what had happened there. But I will say this, and we talked about Mark Cooper the other week, and I know he's not everybody's favourite in terms of, the personality, if you like, but he's got a very good record of building sides to get up and out of this division. I'm sure he'll be well backed, and he was in there towards the end of the season to get a look at what he's got. So, I would also expect Chelmsford to do better next season and to be up there, definitely in the top 7.
Right, we do have in 9th place Ebbsfleet United. Jen, I'm going to come to you on Ebbsfleet. Season, what do you think of it? What do you make of it all?
Don't think it's a bad season for them. Obviously, they've had a good home run, very, very good home run. But away again, just struggled a little bit away from home. Yeah, I think if they got a few more wins under the belts away from home, maybe they could have pushed further up the table. But 9th isn't the worst. But again, they'll probably want a better season next year for sure. They need to be up and around the playoffs, definitely.
Ben, you probably have to be careful too much what you say about Ebbsfleet, don't you? Not being too far down the road, but listen, we don't see the budget sheets, we don't know. But Ebbsfleet United had a very healthy budget this season, and their expectations were almost certainly to try and win the league, and if not, to make sure they were in a playoff position. Their final finishing position, I will say this, is a little bit freakish. They had a run of games. I don't know how many games. Joe was the one, to be fair, that noticed it and kept mentioning it. But they kept conceding last-minute goals that cost them a point, or it cost them 2 points. And that doesn't excuse them, of course. But they'll probably say that they were mightily close, as no doubt you will when we cover the next team, to making those playoffs, but they should have been in the minimum, should they not?
They should have been, to be honest. Again, I don't understand how they haven't finished in the top 7, because they have been in the top 7 pretty much all season, to be honest with you. And obviously, they let it slip on the final day of the season. I mean, they couldn't have asked for a tougher fixture in the last day. You know, Worthing away from home, where Worthing had to win the league. So that was always going to be a difficult one. But again, a bit like Chelmsford have let a lot of points slip from winning positions, and particularly late on in games. And you know that Josh Wright will be ultimately kicking himself, and obviously as much as obviously the players will be as well, because again, with that squad they had on paper, that should have been competing for the title. You know, there's no doubt about it. They do spend a lot of money at Ebbsfleet. Yeah. You know, I mean, a lot of their accounts get released about the amount of that they're in debt. You know, you're talking in millions and millions. You know, and all to be, you know, sitting outside the playoffs. You know, for their fans, it must be incredibly frustrating, you know, for what they've had to put up with. I mean, the one thing you can say, obviously, in their defence is the fact that they obviously have bounced back in probably the best way they could, you know, obviously given the fact they had a really tough season in the National League, you know, and picking up very few points. But they've had a sustainable season. You know, they've just missed out on, you know, on playoffs, on obviously goal difference. And I think they'll be, again, like Chelmsford, they'll be spending quite heavily in the summer to try and get back up to the National League. I know they've just kept hold of Charlie Seaman today, which is a big plus for them, because Charlie Seaman is someone that could play in the National League for me. So, you know, that's the thing. If that's sort of the caliber player that they're looking to, you know, make sure that's with them on the journey with them next year, then they'll have no problems challenging for promotion. But they just need a little bit more consistency. They do. Yeah. Obviously, particularly on the road, where maybe it just let them down ever so slightly. I mean, home form's pretty, fine, really. To be honest, you can't really complain too much about their home form. It's just where they've maybe let themselves down a little bit on the road, which which fans I think will be disappointed about. But Dominic Samuel, 17 goals for him. You know, get a player they highly rate at Ebbsfleet as well. Obviously they've got some good forwards there, like Crazy Apire as well. You know, vastly experienced. We won promotion with Boreham Wood last season, so yeah, they've got to make sure that they bring in maybe someone to play alongside Dom, to give them the best chance of getting more. Yeah. Because defensively, they haven't actually been that bad, but it's just obviously goal scoring on the road. As you can see, 29 goals isn't the best for a side that's finished, just outside plus and goal difference. So big, again, like a lot of teams, a big summer for them.
Just before we move on, I just wanted to highlight this because what a lovely comment it is. So thank you for all the coverage you have given to the National League Pyramid this season. Even though I've only subscribed late on, very much looking forward to coming back next season. So thank you so much for your kind comments. We do really, really appreciate it and appreciate your support as well. And we love highlighting non-league football, don't we, team? We love it. But, right. Who should we get to talk about this one?
It's not available right now.
It's not available.
Oh, you got to go to Jen on this one.
George, what man? That's all I've got to say.
8th position, we do have Maidstone United. Do you know what? Before I come to you, Ben, I am going to get Jen's perspective on Maidstone United. So, Jen, I will come to you.
Maidstone? No, I think Maidstone did very well this season. I do think it's one of them where they had such a good season last season. They kind of had to be as good, if not better, than they were. And they did struggle, especially away from home. Again, it's them issues where you aren't playing the way you are at home away. It can really dampen your spirits and where you are in the table. A couple of losses away can really ruin your season. And it has, in honesty. But again, George, an incredible manager, seems like an incredible man. He very much reminds me of Jim Bentley, very much family, cares about all the staff, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, it's sad to see him go. It really is.
Ben?
Very better, to be honest, Jen has put, really. I mean, yeah, to be honest, I think I said before, I think we've overachieved this season, if I'm being totally honest, given the fact that we lost a lot of, our quality last season and took a chance on a lot of players that didn't maybe perform very well at some clubs. I mean, you brought in the likes of Leo Hamblin, Dion Moore, TJ Bramble, been part of teams that got relegated last year. And I thought if that's the sort of caliber players we were bringing in, then we may well be in a battle for staying up. But I just think that as we have done for the last 2 or 3 years under George, we've managed to obviously be consistent if we possibly can. Look, we've been very hard to beat. We're not the most attractive team to watch. I think a lot of people that have ever watched this in the last couple of years know that. But we will make it very hard for teams. And I think given the fact that what George was given at the start of the season budget-wise, I think, he deserves a massive pat on the back for me, because I even told him after when we beat Worthing, I said, I was expecting us to be near the bottom 4. I was like, I think, he deserves more credit than what he's probably getting from some people. And yeah, obviously, look, on paper, when you lose on goal difference by +3, you're going to be obviously absolutely gutted, because, we felt like we should have been in there, because as I've said time and time again this season, if game management had been so much better, we would have probably won the league, because we conceded. I think we lost about 19 points from winning positions this season, and a lot of it I think has come after probably the 80th minute. So look, we've only got ourselves to blame for why we didn't finish in the top 7, but I think a lot of positives can be taken, and obviously the main thing is if we can keep hold of the core of the squad. We've kept 5 of them so far, I think. So if we can add a couple more in there, and some of the more experienced players, then we might have a chance of pushing towards top 7 again next year with Craig Fagan now taking over. But at least, George got to finish, I think, in the best way possible. The fact that he got to finish on his own terms, and he left the club in, for me, a good place on the pitch. We've just got to make sure now that Craig Fagan takes it to that next step, and he'll be very determined to that. That's for sure. He's an incredible guy. Gets, very much a bit like, as Jen said, with Jim Bentley, a very family man, and always back his staff and, everyone involved at the club. And he wants nothing more than to do well next year for us, and to get us that promotion that we want. So we'll see what sort of signings he can conjure up. But look, I think overall, if I was offered that, in pre-season, I would have been very happy with taking 8th spot and 77 points. Again, 2 points less than what we got last year, so I'm quite pleased.
Ben, can I ask you a question about George?
Of course.
I don't think he's appeared anywhere else yet, has he? This is somebody who, based on his reputation as a person, his career in the game, and the job he did with Maidstone, particularly the FA Cup runs, making them very, very hard to beat, making the playoffs, just missing out on goal difference. This is a guy that teams are going to be looking at in terms of his availability as a manager, aren't they?
100%. Yeah. I must say it's a bit like Lee Addison a little bit at Hemel. It's like, if now obviously we'll at least get to see with Lee Addison, if we can work with now a more healthy budget than what he's probably used to. I think wherever George goes on to next, whether he does go into management, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, he's said to me that he's taken a break from it. He wants to spend a bit of time with family. I know he's been spending a bit of time with Wolves at the moment, just doing some more coaching and a bit more learning for him, which is great for his development. But if he goes to a club where he'll get backs with money. I would love to see if he can, push on that one step further and get a promotion in his CV. I think it's so important for him. But he certainly, if he does go back into management in the not too distant future, he won't be short of offers, that's for sure. He's an incredible guy. Like anyone who's ever played for him will know that you would run through brick walls for him. He just, the way he motivates those players is very different to what a lot of managers would try. I mean, obviously, I've been lucky to be in some of those team huddles when I've been filming content for the club, and the way he speaks to those players is like he's going to war with them, and he's just got that that character about him. I mean, you saw obviously in those games, in our FA Cup run, where we were putting bodies on the line for everything. He was so organised defensively. That's all George, because he's been at the top level. He knows how to get the best out of players, and look, I would love to see him getting into at least the National League, if not getting a Football League job. I would love to see him do it. It's just a shame it's not going to be with us. I'd like to think it's not. We've always said to George, it's never a closed door. I mean, it was quite emotional because I don't think I mentioned that. In the last game of the season, obviously when we all got back from Bath, we actually gave him a round of applause as he was leaving the ground. All the staff came out, gave him a round of applause as he was leaving. It was like he just got married or something like that. I don't think any manager we've ever had in certain time I've supported the club has ever had that treatment, because he got to leave on his own terms. So that was quite emotional, to be honest, and that just shows that what he's done for this club. And I've told him how grateful I am that he's brought everyone together, and he got it. And the fact that it's going now to someone that has got again a passion for the club, and he's desperate for him. He's not Craig Fagan isn't coming in to pick up a wage and do this for his own benefit. He's doing this because he wants to help Maidstone United Football Club push on to the next level. And I hope he is the man to take us back to the National League, because I'll be fully backing him 100% on it.
Shara, have I got time to ask one more question to Ben?
Oh, I don't know. I'm only joking, of course.
I know we are doing a bit more on Maidstone, but at the end of the day,
don't worry.
It is one of our panel's teams, isn't it?
Of course.
John Gilbert, obviously a very respectable 10 goals for him from midfield. But what does that tell us about the striking department at Maidstone? Was it a question of injuries or too many different players and nobody quite hitting their straps?
We just never had a regular goal scorer, to be honest. I mean, Dion Moore, I think, finished on, it might have been 8 or 9, so he wasn't too far behind. Hamzad Cargbo chipped in with a couple. Obviously, Mo Fowl, was starting to get into his stride, and obviously got his season-ending injury, which was obviously devastating. So I think, I think all season we've just been struggling for a regular striker, because it seemed to be changing week in, week out. We never always knew who was going to start up top. One week it'd be, look, we're playing against a certain team where we need to just get it on Cargbo's head. And, we would do that against some of the probably bigger teams in the league. If we're looking for a bit more pace, maybe we went for Dion Moore. But, I think that's the thing we lacked here, because we've gone from, Aaron Blair, scored obviously about nearly 20-odd goals for us the year before. It was always going to be a hard task to replace him, to be honest. But I think now that's got to be first. I still freak out when I overlook every so often. But yeah, I just think that they need to first and foremost get obviously a number one goalkeeper. Obviously, I know they've signed Lenny Holden. Whether he'll be number one, I'm not sure. But they've got to sign a striker that will score us 20 goals if they possibly can. I know they're so hard to come by, but they need a goal scorer, because Gilbert has been brilliant, but I think really he scored most of his goals, I think, in the first couple of months of the season. He didn't really chip in with a lot until towards the end. So you are right. I think we have struggled a little bit in the striking department, and again, I think away from home that's proved costly a little bit.
Anybody else got anything to add?
No more questions, my lord. I mean, lady. Sorry.
Oh, don't worry. Honestly, like I say, you're more than welcome, any of you, to interject and ask any questions. It makes my job a lot easier anyway. 7th position, Maidenhead United. This club, thank you so much for Sam Beckwith, 5 away, and Casey Petit. That's all I have to say right now about this team. Anybody else want to talk Maidenhead?
Look, they've had a good season. I think they'll probably admit that themselves. I mean, I think it would have been a bit unrealistic for them to challenge for the title, but I think they've gone through a big transition period, haven't they? Where obviously Alan Devonshire's gone after a long, time, involved with the club as a manager, passing it to his number 2, and Ryan Peters, who again, this is his first proper go at full-time management. And look, fair play to him. He got into a 7th place position. He just sort of just carried it on, from where they left off, and they finished in a respectable position. I mean, look, obviously, they've squeezed in those playoffs and on goal difference, and they probably would have come away with that Dorking game with a little bit of regret that they didn't maybe, take the game to them a little bit, as I know they can do. They're probably one of the better sides we've come up against this year in terms of attacking style. And, look, Josh Amara, 16 goals for him. There's plenty of talent in that squad. And obviously they've lost a couple of players, including likes of Will de Havilland, who's, an absolute rock-solid centre-back for this level. For me, probably should still be playing in the National League. So, they'll take a lot of positives, I think, from this season because, look, best defensive record in the league. Goal scoring could have been a little bit better. But, look, they did what, a lot of clubs would have loved to have done, and which was getting into that top 7. So they'll look at this as a successful season.
Definitely. Right, moving on. 6, we have Weston-super-Mare. Who wants to talk about Weston-super-Mare?
HMS Britain. If you add in his FA Cup goals, he was a 20-goal season plus striker. He made a big difference for them. The 2 managers, the 2 Scots, obviously we've already talked about Bartlett, who was doing a really, really good job there. No, I don't think anybody doubted that. He was doing a good job. And Scott Rogers actually has done quite well coming in and keeping some of the momentum going. An outstanding 15 wins at home. Such a difficult team to play on their own ground, aren't they? They really are. They didn't go crazy with goals scored. They often just toughed it out and got it done by an odd goal. But, Luke Coulson, another player who he dropped down 2 or 3 years ago. I think every time you look at their side and you look at his output, he's a player that could still comfortably be playing at a level above Ben, isn't he? Luke Coulson, outstanding. They managed to impress all season, and this year compared to last season, they stayed there enough. They made it into the playoffs, but they weren't able to progress. You have to say it's an overachievement, Ben, don't you?
100%. I think obviously they would have been really gutted last year to just miss out, and obviously they would have probably used that as motivation to go that one step further. And for me, they fully deserve to be in the top 7. They, were probably one of the best sides. I think if not, I think I still said they were probably the best side we played this season when we went to their place. They just had the game done. I think after about 25 minutes, to be honest, we were just never going to get near them. And I think defensively, at home, they're just a different, force of nature. They are. You just can't create chances against them. And, Britain, it's an odd one with him because, obviously he's been nearly 20 goals this season for them in the league. And, even then at times he still wasn't, the regular starter for them. I think towards the last couple of months of the season, he spent a lot of time on the bench. I don't know whether he was carrying knocks or not, or whether they just had a different approach for how they wanted to go at some teams. I don't know. But, look, if you've got someone like that who'd probably, for me, get into most National League sides, with the qualities brought. And again, he's a player that's come from the lower reaches of non-league, and into, pushing towards league football. I know there was strong links with him going to Bristol Rovers at one point. Obviously, that didn't come to fruition. But again, I think as we've just mentioned about Scott Rogers, I mean, to take on what Scott Bartlett builds and really push it on to that next step, which was given their highest ever league finish. I think that's a massive testament to them as a club because look, they are one of the smaller clubs when you look at them on paper. There used to be a period of time where staying in the National League South was their achievement. That's the thing because with the resource they've got, as Rob says, they've massively overachieved the last couple of years, but they've got some good experience that helps them along the way. The likes of Luke Coulson, who is one of the best players in the division, one of the best midfielders in the division by quite some distance, in my opinion. So
what about Emlyn Lewis at the back? Is it Emlyn Lewis? Emlyn?
I think so. Yeah, they just. I think just defensively, they just they're just really, really organised. They speak. They're very vocal at the back as well. And even to the goalkeeper as well. It's been that's the thing. I think that's got them in the playoffs. I mean, if you only conceded 16 goals, I mean, obviously I was just in awe of the fact that we only conceded 19 over this season. In fact, they've only conceded 16 is quite some achievement because look. They haven't scored a lot of goals this year when you look at it, But again, defence will get you in those situations. Like I say, you've always got yourself a chance if you can keep clean sheets. So, but yeah, they would have been really, they've still got obviously the height of the night, obviously at Hemel, for their memories and everything like that. That would have been a great moment for them. But obviously, they won't be feeling too bad the fact they were beaten by the eventual playoff winners. So, again, they'll take a lot of positives into next season.
Just in a chat as well, Lucas put hats off to Weston-super-Mare and Maidenhead for being in the playoffs. And next, in 5th spot, we do have Hemel Hempstead. Yes, I pronounce my H's. Jen, I'm going to come to you. I know I've done really well this season. I feel really sophisticated. But Jen, I'm going to come to you first, obviously, on Hemel Hempstead.
I think they had an all right season, to be fair to them. They've tried the best. I think home and away, great form, incredible form from them. I just think with a few extra wins here and there, they could have pushed a bit higher up in the table. But overall, I think they've had a very, very good season to be where they are.
Be very hard to beat, aren't they, as well, Hemel? Very, very hard to beat. I know, just looking at the goals as well, compared to some of the other teams in the league, they haven't scored as many, have they? But they are really, really difficult to obviously beat. Very good defensively as well. Ben, Rob, your thoughts? I'll let you pick between yourselves. Who wants to go first?
Just really, we already talked a lot about Lee Allenson, didn't we?
Did,
so you take his ability to make a team very, very hard to beat and to grind out results. And you put that into Dagenham with a greater budget. And like you say, that's an interesting equation ahead. But make no bones about it, for the size of club that they are, this is an outstanding finish for Hemel, in my opinion. And a really tough act for Birchie to go in and follow, Obviously, Lee Bircham, the Bedford town manager, is now the Hemel Hempstead manager. As Sam correctly said, Lee Allenson was there for the duration of the season. But I think Birchie's got to kind of create. I think from what I'm hearing, they're keeping quite a lot of their players, their core players, which is really, really good for them.
Yeah.
And hopefully, with Birchie being the character that he is, that they can get some more good players in as well. What's your thoughts, Hemel? Hemel in 5th. Were many people saying that high before the season started?
Do you know what? I think now you've mentioned it, I would probably say yes, to a certain extent, because I think we were raving about them early in pre-season last year,
wasn't it?
Because they were very clever. In fact, they'd done their business quite early. A bit like what Farnham are doing at the moment. They are acquiring those players that probably teams wanted very quickly. And getting your business done, is so important, I think, because you already have a good idea of how you want to play. If you're scrambling around, towards the end of pre-season, you might be going, I still don't think we've got a clear style of play how we want to go. Lee Allison clearly had an idea of what he wanted to do. And obviously the main, strength of that is being, we're going to be hard to break down. You can come onto us, but we're not going to let you pass. And, for a lot of games this year, they have been such a hard team to break down. Not just because, they've got a great goalkeeper, in Michael Johnson, that keeps a lot of shots out. They just don't let teams have any chance to put the ball in the box and, in that final third. And then when they do, it doesn't get to anyone because there's always someone on Hemel head on the end of it. And it was always going to be tough when Miller Matthews-Lewis obviously got his move to Burton Albion. So everyone probably assumes that they start dropping down the table a little bit. But they obviously had an initial period where I think they were picking up a few bad results. But all of a sudden, it just started picking up again. And towards the end of the season, they have just come on leaps and bounds. And, as Chris has just put there, 20th a couple of years ago to finish in 5th in the division is just shown, what they're trying to build and what the owner's done there. The owner's a very likable character. I wasn't big on him at the start, but, he's the first man you see when if you ever been on like your team bus and that to your game, he's the first man you'll see because he's the car park attendant. So he's proper hands-on and everything. So, I think obviously he'll be initially disappointed, obviously, that Lee's gone, but obviously, bringing someone like Lee Bircham in, who, again, did wonders at Bedford with being obviously the main part of them staying in the National League North. So, I think they'll be they'll obviously be a little bit gutted because they probably would have thought this might have been their year, to be honest, for Hemel. But I think when you take everything into equation, they'll look on this season back with a lot of pride and so much to look forward to for next season now, I think.
Definitely. And in fourth, we have Dorking Wanderers. Rob, I'm going to come to you first on this one. I know you talk to Mark a lot. Follow Dorking. What do you make of their season?
Yeah, I was there at the end. I was there when they got up to the National League, and unfortunately, I was also at Wealdstone when they got relegated from the National League. And I was hoping with all the shots season finished and they're making the playoffs to perhaps see them back up to the level. I think everybody in the National League would have loved to have had Dorking Wanderers back up, and I don't doubt that they will in the next season or two. It was pretty bonkers. I think we all know the Dorking Wanderers story of this season, whether it's through bunch of amateurs, whether it's through Mark's excellent and regular communication. We all know injury crisis again throughout the whole season for about the third year running, taking whatever steps he can to try and change that for next season. I think one of the most remarkable things is that during that run, and with a lot of players unavailable to them, they actually got 6 or 7. It might have even been for a day, 8 points clear at the top of the league with, not much more than a month or so to go. That was the staggering achievement, I think. And they just ran out of gas in the end, losing, I think, or not winning for 4 or 5 games in the last 5 or 6 until that last day. I think cost them. It cost them a home semi-final. They were blown away by Torquay in the playoffs on the day. They play a high-risk style, Dorking. They often leave it one-on-one at the back. Torquay were well set up for that. And they had players in form, in particular one that had Ben scratching his head because he was absolutely flying in the playoffs. The Maidstone loanee, wasn't he, Ben? I mean, you must, from what you've said, you must have been surprised how on fire he was at Torquay when he got there.
Obviously, we'll probably allude to when we talk about Torquay, but...
Sorry, I don't know why I've gone to you on that, because obviously we talk about Dorking.
I think we'll come to them in a minute, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, my bad. That is Alfie Rutherford. Just the 12 goals. I think he had his fair share of injuries throughout that season as well. Hamstring, I think, particularly, if I remember, on a couple of occasions. Dorking is always going to be a roller coaster ride. Excellent home form. And I know that that's flipped over the seasons, hasn't it? I think the season before, Mark was really frustrated at their home form, which wasn't up to the usual standards. But yeah, 10 defeats on the road. You might look at that and say, Dorking being the club they are. The trouble is they often always have a target on their back, Ben, don't they? So, and some of that Mark brings upon himself. I think he'd be the first to admit that, but he tells it as it is. And they're always going to be a good watch. And I hope, I think I already know 1 or 2 of the key signings they've got coming in. They're going to be right at it again next year, Ben.
Yeah. And again, I think if they can keep, injury free, if they possibly can, then I think, everyone will probably see him as maybe the strong title favourites. I mean, that they had the title in their hands for me. I think a lot of us said it. I think we were talking about here in the podcast saying I don't see anyone catching them. And then just more injuries week by week. We just, cost them. And that is what's cost them winning the league, is just the injuries. If they had their strongest squad available, would have blown everyone away. This league would have been done probably, 3 or 4 games maybe before the season ended. They were a good side. And again, look, Mark, has had an identity of how he's wanted to play for the last probably 25 years. He's been involved with Dorking. And, look, they'll be disappointed. They will, because they saw an opportunity this year to do it, I think. And I think maybe if they'd even got a home, like I said, finished second, you probably wouldn't seen them. You probably would have seen them winning the playoffs, to be honest. Just like say, 17 wins at home. Yeah, okay, we can talk about form goes out the window, but in playoff games at home, they very rarely let their fans down. Look, when they got promoted before, they beat Oxford City, then obviously beat Ebbsfleet in that dramatic final, and obviously Maidenhead this year. So they are up for the big occasion when it's on their patch, but away from home, like I say, they were just blown away by a good Torquay side on the day, and having only, I think, one fit centre back probably didn't help that either for them. So yeah, Mark will know what he wants, and he knows he's going to probably need a bit of squad depth next year. But the biggest problem, and I've said it for a few weeks, is getting that pitch sorted out. Because if that 3G is probably, no disrespect to Stephen Slough, but it's up there with probably the worst ones in the division. And if they can get that sorted out, if that was a grass pitch, they'd have absolutely no problems, I don't think. But the amount of ACLs they get on it can't be a coincidence. They must be something to do with that pitch, because I've walked in it a few times and it's not a great service. And when you're running it about at very high speeds and having to do quick turns, it looks quite easy to do your knee in on it. So I'm sure that'll be a problem for Mark. But the problem is it's down to Surrey FA to sort that out, given the fact it's their ground, isn't it? So it's a difficult one for him.
Yeah, it's one of the questions I specifically asked Mark after the defeat at Torquay in the BBC Surrey interview was about the pitch. And I don't think anybody had asked him outright for quite a long time, which is why I did. Can you do anything about the pitch? He said, no, we can't do anything about the pitch. It's as simple as that. So all they can do is look at all the other things that have an impact on that, aren't they? The other thing that must be noted with Dorkin, Mark is one of the most loyal managers to his players. He hates saying goodbye to them. And I can't ever remember them releasing as many players as they did this year. 9 players and some real stalwarts in amongst that list. Morrow, Niall McManus, obviously JP9 has gone, just to mention a few. And I think Mark, he wears his heart on his sleeve, doesn't he? And I think he put a little tweet out the next morning. I think he's feeling really quite sad, because he'd had to say goodbye to so many in one go. And it fundamentally goes against the grain of what he wants to do. But I think he's had to reluctantly accept, with what he's learned and what those advising him around him are, that he's probably got to flip even more to a younger model.
I think that's the thing. I think it's a side of Mark White we don't normally see. You always see him as like BHS manager, like it's win at all costs and everything like that. You don't normally see that emotional side of him, even when all the promotions they've won, over the years. He's always a very calm and collected, character. It's almost like, it's just another day at the office. But when it comes to letting players go, you see a different side to him. And like, as you say, Rob, they've let some players, I think, didn't he put a tweet out? They've let about something, was it 30 years or something like that of Dorkin experience go, in like a short space of time. And, it's remarkable how he's always kept such a good core of players. I mean, he's obviously still got James McShane there, who's been there for a number of years. Dan Gallagher, I think, now has become the new captain.
Josh Taylor. Yeah.
Josh Taylor as well. And obviously they've just lost Charlie Carter as well, which, for me, I think I said on there, but got on record saying he's the best player in the division for me. So, he deserves a move to the league above, if not possible, move to the EFL. So it'll be gutted, obviously, to lose him, I think, more than anyone. But then you've obviously lost a lot of goals in Jason Pryor, who's always been Mr. Reliable for him, over the time. And one of the strikers I always hated to come up against, because he always scored against us. He was just always such a threat. But look, it's a chance now, like I say, to hopefully maybe get some younger players in. I know he's always been big on experience, but he needs probably a few younger players to really help him out next year and might get him over the line. So, but Mark knows what he's doing. He's been at it for God knows how many years, and there'll be strong challenges again next year.
Jen, do you have anything to add on Dorkin?
Just Mark White, just great, isn't it? That's it.
Yeah, completely agree with that one. Completely agree. This made me laugh as well, what Luke put. Shah's two favourite things, Emma Lempstead, as he's put it, and Mark White. Yeah, definitely. Right. Third, we have Torquay United. Who wants to talk Torquay?
I wonder if Joe will pop up in the chat,
Bless him.
We're looking incredibly yellow right now, aren't we? Across the whole board here now.
Yes.
I don't know about Jen and me. Have we got anything yellow? You got something yellow in the background, Jen, at least, haven't you?
It's not mine. I'm not touching it.
Do you want to go, Ben, first?
Yeah, can do. I mean, it's probably a bit of a shame, actually, we haven't got Joe, because I would have loved to have got his opinion. I mean, I think as Joe's probably put in social media, he's quite proud of, the team in that. And I think, to get him in that situation of a playoff final, a lot of them obviously would be disappointed they didn't win the league. You know, they had a strong, target on their back as probably, the biggest club in this division, given the stadium, the resources they have and the pitch, everything is such a professional setup at Torquay. It's almost like, how are they, going to be in this division for a fourth season? And they're, again, a bit like Dorking, their aim has got to be to win the league next year. Look, form-wise, home, again, pretty good. There's not really many complaints they can say about that. On the road, very indifferent. But I think now with Jimmy Ball getting a summer now, I think it was quite clear that, and it's nothing against what Paul Weston does, because I think we've said that Paul Weston wasn't doing a bad job. And, obviously the timing of the sacking probably wasn't the best. But, maybe if we did look and say if he did come in a few games earlier, could he have got him over the line? Possibly. But, look, there were a couple of teams that just were a little bit better than them this season. Again, they weren't massively far off. Jordan Young, 16 goals for a winger is fantastic for him. And again, if they had maybe Dion Moore for a longer period of the season, if he kept his goal scoring record going for a few more months longer, then they probably would have won the league. So, it was a game of, it was a very fine margins that has cost them. Look, they were 5 minutes away from promotion to yet again another season in this league. It just shows how quickly football changes. And look, fans will start to lose patience down there, and if they don't get off to a good start next year, Torquay, it could turn very toxic again. As much as I love my trips going out to Torquay, the fans can get on their players back very quickly when it starts going wrong. In my experiences when we've gone down there, so there's a big pressure in the next year.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, and I think those fans played a big part in Paul Watton going. They do make an awful lot of noise, and I think the board listened to the fans, but in a similar but different way to Kev Mayer at Southend, I think Torquay would have made the playoffs under Paul Watton. They would have made the playoffs. So would they have succeeded? We don't know. We don't know how it would have gone, where they'd have finished, who they'd have played. But I think he did an excellent job, and Jimmy Ball equally did pretty well. Got a new tune out of them, didn't he? After a loss of momentum towards the end of the season. And he's certainly earned that opportunity in management with his excellent tenure at AFC Tottenham. If Joe was on, I could sort of hear Joe in my... we talk a lot, so I can hear him in my ears, even though he's not here. He'd want to point out the front four, really, I think, and they really excelled on that playoff home game against Dorking, when they could have scored much more than the four that they did. So the two players not mentioned so far, we obviously talked about Young and we talked about Moore, but Dylan Morgan on the left-hand side and Sonny Blulow Everton, who Joe says was the Torquay United player of the season. Big club, great fan base, also can be a toxic fan base if it's not going right for them. They'll be amongst the front runners and the favourites for next season. Pretty healthy season all told, and finishing third on that final day gave them that home tie. It made the difference for them, didn't it, against Dorking? But somehow they come up short in a tight game against the team we're going to talk about next.
Just before we move on, Jen, do you have any thoughts on Torquay United and their season?
I just think they've done incredible to be where they are in the table. It's incredible from them. I think, again, if just a couple more away wins, and they could have easily been at the top of the table, hands down. But yeah, I think it'll give them a good positive going forward into next season. I was thinking, right, maybe we can push and go for promotion next season.
Definitely. And one team I did want to come on to, obviously, second, Hornchurch. Jen, I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, and we will go back to it, you actually had them to be promoted. I can't remember if it was your playoff winner or the title winner, but thoughts on Hornchurch this season, because what a guess.
Yeah, I've literally predicted it right, I think. I had to go through my emails and try and find it, but I'm pretty sure, I did predict them like near the top, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, they've had an incredible season. The home and away form's insane. It must be great to be a fan of them this season, because you wouldn't have expected them to be anywhere near where they were. And it's incredible how much has happened there. But like we've said from the start since we started this, what happens in Hornchurch stays in Hornchurch. So
yeah, that was Anne.
we will see what happens. But yeah, I'm happy for them. I'm very, very happy for them.
This made me laugh from Luke as well. Athletics track derby next season for them.
0-0.
I know, guaranteed that one. Rob, Ben, who wants to talk about Hornchurch next?
You can go,
Couple
Rob,
of
if you need
things.
to.
Couple of things on Hornchurch that spring to mind. I went there for the first time. It's going to be that pain in the arse stadium to go to for National League teams next year.
Yeah.
Angelo Balanta, class act at that level. He'll hold his own in the top tier of non-league again, as will, if he can fit it in around his day job, Josh Reese, who, let's face it, I mean, you talk about Charlie Carter being the best player in the division. I think if you're putting a little kind of handful of them together, Josh Reese is in there as well, isn't he?
Definitely.
And for sure. You know, the non-league Frank Lampard, as we've called him over the years. Absolutely love Josh, and a wonderful human being he is as well. He's had his challenges off the pitch, you know. So good to see them prevailing. I've completely forgot that my mate, my best mate, is the brother of Dave Winfield, who's been at Hornchurch. I think he's just signed for Ramsgate. He's going into about a 22nd season as a professional now. Well done, Big Dave. He was there as well. Perhaps, and I don't know anything here, but perhaps Hornchurch's greatest challenge might be keeping hold of their manager, because I think he has an excellent record, and to get Hornchurch up is outstanding. And I just seen one or two little stories about one or two clubs, one of them in the Football League, looking at Daryl McMahon. So let's see what happens there. I think they're going to need everything. They're going to need Reese. They're going to need Balanta. They're going to need McMahon. And they'll take their fair share of scalps, I'm sure, at that stadium next season. But it will be a tough challenge for them, one league up.
Yeah, and we said before, I think after the playoff final, that Daryl McMahon will know that if obviously they do, you know, he does obviously stay on next season. He's been at the level before, and he knows this is probably going to be his biggest challenge of all the ones he's probably taken into the National League. Look, the good thing for them is the fact they have been well backs. You know, I think a lot of people won't say that. You know, look, don't get me wrong, I'm not taking it away, because it is a fantastic achievement what Hornchurch have done. But you know, they have been able to acquire some very, very good players, you know, at this level, which I think would walk into pretty much all teams in this league. You know, Balanta obviously being one of them, and obviously Josh Reese. You know, going their forward line is just a joke. You know, with like Polion, and not even mentioning George Alexander, who they brought in, and obviously Henry Hearn as well. Like, there's just so much quality, and they keep hold of pretty much all of them next year. You wouldn't put it past them to stay in the division next year. But I've always said I think defensively is going to be where they may well struggle a little bit. And look, I think they will see an opportunity which maybe Truro City didn't take this year, is making, you know, their stadium a fortress. You know, because look, we've seen this season with the clubs in our, you know, in this division, that home form has been massive. You know, Chippenham, I know obviously it's away form that let them down. Their home record wasn't that bad. You know, there's a lot of teams that will be looking at Hornchurch and waiting, thinking it's going to be a tough one. That, you know, even if they're towards the bottom, you're not going to get an easy game when you go there. I think only before this season, I think I'd been to Hornchurch about 5-6 times. I've never seen us won there until this season. And, you know, because I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the vibe of the stadium, the fan base, the pitch. It's a number of things. It's just such a hard place to go to. I think it just throws you off a little bit. And when you see the likes of Carlisle, Southend, you know, Harrogate, all these clubs and that going there next year, they'll be thinking, God, this is a bit of a culture shock. So, but look, what an achievement for them, you know, to beat Torquay and also to come back the way they did, you know, twice in the game as well. You know, is a testament to the squad they've got, that they'll keep going right to the end. And they will need some legs in the National League next year, but they would obviously need plenty of experience to get him over that line. So, you know, fair play to Daryl McMahon, who's had his playoff heartache in the past. You know, on the 10-year anniversary it was of when we beat Ipswich in the playoff final, was only a few days ago. So, in fact, he's now had a couple of experience winning in playoffs. You know, will certainly make it a little bit better for him. And this is probably arguably his greatest achievement as a manager so far.
Definitely. Just wanted to confirm to anyone listening on audio as well that Hornchurch did finish second and they did go up through the playoffs. So last but surely not least, champions in first place, we do have Worthing. Who wants to talk to us first about Worthing?
I can get my views out of it.
Go for it. They won your division.
Well, look, they obviously were worthy winners in the end, but again, I think it's a strange one because I think we were talking off air, Shah, and I think you said you didn't have them actually that high up, did you? And I would have probably agreed with you in that because they lost a lot of key players in the last summer, in particular in the forward line. Obviously, they lost Ollie Pearce, they'd lost obviously Mo Fowl, and that's a lot of goals for them.
Danny Cashman too.
Cashman as well, of course, not forgetting Cashman. And you probably thought that where the goal's going to come from. But then, I sort of, if you know the National League South like I do, when you're bringing someone like Razak Coleman de Graft, who, for me is probably one of the best wingers at this level, if thinking to myself, why couldn't we got that version of him when he was with us, a couple of years ago? But then you've got Brad Dollahan, who wasn't actually always, obviously he's got, I think, a lot of goals, I think, at the start of the season. But then obviously he's gone a little bit of a quiet period. And I don't know, they just went about their business very quietly at times. And obviously, look, bringing Adam Hinchelwood back was probably the best thing that could have happened to him. Obviously, how it all happened with, Chris Agata going to Sutton, it was obviously, I think had he been in charge, I don't think they would have won the league personally. But with Hinchelwood coming back, he was sort of able to finish what he started. And, look, we obviously Morgan obviously alluded to the fact that he was like almost a bottle job, that he's the person that just couldn't get it over the line. And even then it was points of the season we thought he's not going to do it, is he? He's going to fall again. But they just picked up in the last month of the season. They kept winning games. And, I think you couldn't have asked for a better scenario last day of the season at home in front of a full house to win the league. They would have snapped your hand off for it. So, massive congratulations to Worthing because it is a good achievement. Yes, again, another side that have been backed very well this year by, an ambitious owner in George Dow, who's, if anyone's watched the documentary, comes across so well in it. And he really deserves this more than anyone for where he's taken this football club from the 8th tier to, playing, going away, planning Carlisle United away next year. It would have been a dream for them, about a decade ago. So, they'll be relishing that opportunity. And again, Adam Hinchelwood knows the division really well, so he'll know the challenges that we come up against, and he won't change his philosophy. That's for sure. So, not so Morgan. No, I wouldn't do that to you. But yeah, they'll be relishing the opportunity, and I sort of can't wait to see actually how they do in the National League, because I think it's going to be interesting to see if their style of play, which is obviously a very similar way to what Dorking do, is successful in that division, and if it's going to be enough to stay up, which is going to be their aim next year.
99 goals, Worthing. We doff our cap to that. That's not just winning. That's not just winning football. That's highly entertaining football. 59 goals scored in their 23 home games is absolutely outstanding. Obviously, Mikowski came from Slough, didn't he? And hit the ground running. And as you say, Brad Dollahan, he got a lot of his goals early in the season, but there's an awful lot of games he didn't start. 23 goals is outstanding for him. And you just referred briefly to George Dow, Ben, and I suspect an awful lot of people do know the story, but just the very basic story some people may not appreciate is that George Dow was left paralysed after a crash, but decided to use some of his compensation to buy Worthing, the football club, as it was on the brink of going out of business. So there is a documentary out there that's well worth looking up. It's a brilliant watch. He's a wonderful man. I perceive him to be a wonderful man. I haven't met him. I'm sure you have, Ben. Have you met George?
I haven't, but he was sitting very close to me at the Gallagher when they came there, in our disabled section. He was actually having some really nice chats with some of our supporters and that, which, is lovely, really. But I think, if you watch the documentary, he comes across so well. He's very humble. He's not big-headed at all. He just wants to help a local football club out, because again, he's an ex-youth player as well, who's obviously, been raised in that, he's worked in around the town, so he knows how much it means to the community and everything. And I'm pretty sure I think it's his mum as well is involved, with the club, working behind the scenes. So, it's a real feel-good story. It is, and we can talk about it, for a long time. That's the thing. And, I don't think he'll ever get, sometimes the full credit deserves, but no one deserves, this promotion more than he does, for what he's amount of hours and, days and time he's put into that football club to make it successful. It is because it was a rundown football club before he joined. And like, as you say, they were close to on the brink, but now they can start preparing now for some away trips they could never have dreamt of. And, I'll be really hoping that they can do well in the division. It is going to be a massive challenge for them. And, they've got to acquire some good quality to stay in that division. But I think if anyone's going to do it, they're probably one of the more, they're probably one of the more likely sides from coming up from the National South that have got a chance of staying up, because it hasn't worked very well for the Southern teams in recent years. So they might be able to change that potentially.
Home form will be key for them. They'll be getting
100%.
4,000 plus gates for some of the big games as well. And Worthing's ready. This football, that town and that football club is ready for this. They've been preparing for it for a long time. They've been very unfortunate to keep getting to the playoffs and not get up. A little bit like the National League South version of Brackley. And they'll be wanting to look and learn at clubs like Brackley, who came up last season and were only able to stay in the division for one league. I agree with you, Ben. I don't think, and it's early days, we don't know who's staying, who's going, who's coming into other clubs, but I don't suspect that Worthing will be one of the 4 clubs that I predict to come down next season.
Jen, do you have any thoughts on Worthing?
I just think it's incredible for the club, the fans, the community. I think for them to be going to grounds like Forest Green and Carlisle and the big clubs, Boreham Wood, them kind of clubs that you expect to be at the top next year. I think, as we've alluded to, I don't think they'll go down next season. I generally think they'll be just absolutely fine and they'll survive. But yeah, it's a huge, huge thing for them to achieve. And honestly, it's incredible that they've been able to do it.
So yes, Worthing were our champions in the National League South. They have gone up to the National League now. And I just wanted to address this comment as well, because obviously on our podcast, usually we do talk National League North, National League South. Because it's the end of the season, we do have 3 season reviews. So it's National League South today. Then next week is National League North. And then we do have National League as well. So yes, lots of content to talk about on here, but we do cover all things non-league. And if you have missed it, you can go back to the beginning and we do cover that FA Trophy game too. But yes, Worthing champions. How did you miss the punch? Yeah, Worthing. Worthing have released 9 players, including Jack Spong.
Yeah, I was quite surprised by that one, I have to admit. Because he's a quality player. I think 2 years ago, I think he got the better version of him about 2 years ago.
Yeah.
When you had like the likes of Ollie Pearce in the team, he was a massive threat going forward, and he has been in and out of the side a little bit this year. So yeah, I think he probably would have been able to cut it at National League level, but I think as it shows, you can't have sentimental value. When you go into this division, I think as you well know, Charles, obviously you've just been promoted and you've had to release a good number of players that helped you get to the Football League. So, but if it's going to make your club better and make you survive in the division and compete, then you have got to make those tough decisions. And that wouldn't have been an easy one for Adam Hinchelwood at all. But Sydney's someone that Jack's someone that he would have known really well from his previous time at the club. So. It's going to be tough for him, but I think Jack Spong again will be a player that a lot of clubs in our division will be looking out for. I hope we're one of them personally, because I'd love to have him in our team. But I don't think we're able to afford him.
But of course, that is our National League South season review done. It's been a fantastic season, hasn't it? It's been an absolute pleasure from an outsider's point of view as well, looking into it and being able to give everybody the coverage of it. It's also been a pleasure as well from hearing from you, Ben, Joe, and everyone in the chat as well, because just throughout the season and the amount of new people we've had come in talking about their team, sending in the match reports as well. It's been absolutely fantastic. So yeah, thank you to each and every person for making this season review and the season as a whole a fantastic one. But as always, this is a collaboration with a fantastic NLFullTime. So Rob, where can everybody find yourself on the socials, but also where can they find the podcast? Because you did mention earlier on in the episode, you have a new episode out, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely jam-packed review of the FA Trophy finals day. I know it wasn't a great game, but Joe and Dickie went for the pod and caught up with an awful lot of people in and around the game. Excuse me, including I think 3 or 4 of the Southend players and the manager of Wealdstone as well, Gary Waddock. So that's available on all podcast platforms at NLFullTime. I think they called it Arch Rivals, that episode.
Love that.
And that's just come out this evening. I'm at RobShot66 if anyone wants to contact me. Thanks for having me again, as always. Loved it.
No, thank you. Thank you. And of course, Jen, I will come to you next. Thank you so much for coming on. Like we said previously, so good to have you on as well. So good to have you back. Where can everybody find you on the socials?
So you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. It's all Jen Hunt _ on all them platforms.
And Ben, I just want to say thank you so much, because your knowledge, don't get me wrong, we've all chipped in at times, but your knowledge as a whole tonight has been absolutely amazing. So thank you so much for that. Where can everybody find you on the socials?
No, always a pleasure. I'm actually glad I managed to get my way through it by just chatting a load of rubbish.
It's never rubbish.
But if you want to find me, it is Ben Stones FC1 on Twitter, and if you want to follow my TikTok, it's Ben_1GK.
Love that. And before I do my socials as well, I just wanted to address this as well. Fantastic graphics from Sam. So thank you. And just a round of applause quickly for him, because he has took so much time in making all of the graphics for the season reviews, and what a fantastic job he has done as well. So yes, thank you so much, Sam. But if you do want to follow me, I am Charxrafc. That is on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram. My own channel as well is Ball and All with Char. I've not done a lot on it at the moment, with everything going on here with Rochdale as well. It's just been a little bit busy at the moment, but I will be getting back to that as soon as, and I will be talking all things Rochdale as well, and probably doing an episode over the weekend just addressing some of those outs and the transfer list and just everything this season there. So if you do want to follow it again, it is Ball and All with Char on YouTube. But of course, we have the Absolute Football Podcast, and we do have 4 live shows a week. So on a Monday, we are the non-league team in collaboration with NLFullTime, and we talk all things non-league, National League, National League North, National League South. On a Tuesday, Sam and the Premier League team, it's in the name, talk all things Premier League. Tomorrow, I am sorry, everybody, but I will be on again. It is a watch-along for the Chelsea Spurs game. It is myself and Grimmy over there. So please, if you do want us to keep you company, if you want to watch it with us, you're more than welcome to. We don't just talk about the football as well. We talk about food. We talk about everything on there. I'm saying I'm not the bad influence. I'm going to blame Grimmy, but I think it's me, because every time I'm on a watch along, it does go to pot a little bit. On a Wednesday, all things women's football with Freya, Paul, and the rest of Team Chaos. They cover WSL, WSL2, any international games. So please go and check them out on a Wednesday. And I am back on a Thursday. Absolutely EFL. Proud to say Rochdale will be involved in that next season as well, which I'm excited to talk. But yes, we talk all things Championship, League 1, League 2. This show on Thursday will just be previews of all the playoff final games. So very interesting. Come in, say your thoughts on them. We'll be having some predictions as well. But yes, please make sure you come and check that out. And interview content as well. So if you are missing the live shows, you can always catch up on that. Do not worry. We are the Absolute Football Podcast. Like, subscribe, turn on the bell notification as well, because then you will not miss a show. We have the Women in Football series, we have interviews, we have club episodes as well. So there's lots of content for you all to watch. But yes, just want to say thank you so much again for tuning in to our National League South season review. Hope you all have a fantastic week, and we will see you back next week for our National League North one. See you later, everyone.